Welcome to the Big Week in Gaming podcast. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise, it's been a big week in gaming. I'm Intergot for episode 19 on Sunday, the 22nd of November 2020. As always, I'm joined by the number one contender for the best Xbox RPG player in the world, official Xbox Hall of Famer, Swinny.
Hello.
And back again, we just can't get rid of him. Next gen gamer himself, Mike.
Hello. Can I quickly just use this as a plug for my OnlyFans site?
Yes.
It's onlyfans.com/Mike wears no pants.
I thought it'd be Mike.
No, it's a different one. I don't mix the two together.
Oh, okay. You want them separate. I'll edit this later. And in this week's show, we'll be discussing the new Bombshell, Epic taking on Apple in Australia. And I'm very excited about this. Mega Assassin's Creed fan himself, Swinny, will get his take on Valhalla. Mike, how's your gaming week been?
Pretty good. It's been mostly Demon Souls. So I'm very depressed, bitter, paranoid, sad. It's been a very dark week.
Oh, I've got to admit something, boys. I've caved.
Uh-oh. What'd you do?
I got Demon Souls.
On PS3.
On PS3.
Yeah.
Of course. Are you going to play it, though?
Dude, I've been playing it.
Oh, nice.
Wow,
How far did you get?
interesting.
Okay, so there's a few things. I only played it for like 40 minutes just because of the week that it's been. And, I'm going to say something that's going to bite me in the ass later. The way that people talk about these games, it's like they're the hardest games ever. And I'm like,
They're not.
is it that hard? Like, it doesn't feel like as hard as what everyone's saying.
So, they aren't the hardest games ever. They are hard. They get harder.
Yeah.
Like Mike's OnlyFans. But no, it's all about, especially knowing your, I guess, like pedigree as a gamer and like the games that you play and stuff. I don't think you have a problem with this game at all because it's all about preparation and memorization and things like that. And like the thing is that the games are tough, but no, like that's always been ridiculous. It's always been ridiculous.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong. Like I'm not saying it's easy, but it's just the way people talk about it. It's like the most difficult game you'll ever play in your life. I played it, got through the tutorial, got beaten by the boss in the tutorial, Vanquest or whatever it's called.
You're meant to get beaten by it.
Yeah, so I only took off a quarter of his health or something like that.
That's still pretty good.
Then I got into the first stage and I was like playing through it. I got to like the dragons and then I died from like one of the dragons on the left-hand side. And I'm like, this game, like I'm not saying it's easy at all, right? It's just like, it kind of shocked me because I was like, oh, this is like way more approachable. I almost didn't want to play these games because I didn't want to like play something that's like impossible, like
I find
super
something
hard
like Super
NES
Meat
game.
Boy harder, or other games to that extent.
I will say you probably haven't come across any of the hurdles that people would typically talk about with Demon Souls yet.
Yeah,
Sure.
With Dark Souls, I think that game has more hurdles up front, especially considering it's like you will run into the graveyard and suddenly you like killed by skeletons because it's kind of, you're not meant to go that way,
because it's more open.
Whereas Demon Souls, I think it's kind of, it eases people in a bit easier in that sense.
Yeah.
But no, like I agree. The games are tough, but it's all about how you approach them. If you just running past every enemy, not exploring, not upgrading your gear, then you're gonna have a tough time. But if you actually take your time, then the games aren't that bad.
Yeah, slow and steady.
For some people, they would have trouble. Especially the bosses are probably where people find the most difficulty with those games. So.
Oh, absolutely. But you can summon. I never summoned when I first played those games, and I made life so much harder for myself. And then when you learn it, you're like, oh, I could just get someone else to come help me. It's so much easier. But I haven't summoned at all in Demon Souls because it's got that mechanic that when you die, you go into soul form and you lose half your health. And the other thing, I don't know if you know about this as well in Intergot, is that it's got a world tendency system. So if you die in body form, it changes the world tendency and stuff like that. So I was trying to avoid all of that. And you kind of make your life more difficult because you're constantly with half health. Well, 75% if you get the ring and stuff. But one quick thing. I did start Dark Souls again, and I think you guys knew that because I showed you the vid.
Yeah.
I got up to the Capra Demon. You son of a... You know all about that, John. And then, I ended up just deleting the game.
Yeah, the Capra Demon.
I have to say, though, like, just because I've never played any Souls game, and I know that you both have always said, you've got to play a Souls game, what are you doing, rah, rah, rah. And so, I just booted up Demon Souls. I thought it would be a bit of a laugh, given I thought I'd be able to trick you a little bit, but obviously failed completely at getting you thinking that I got a PS5.
That wasn't going to work.
Dude, like, I friggin' love this game. I'm, like, so into it. I'm, like, thinking about it all the time. I'm like, wow, this is like...
It's like that. It consumes you.
Just think there's so much ahead of you in the whole series. Like,
yeah.
Oh, my God. And this comes from someone who's never played through Bloodborne or Demon Souls myself, but even just knowing about those games, it's like, man, I wish I didn't know about them for the first time.
Same. Yeah. I can't wait for a new one just so I could experience that for the first time. Because playing Demon Souls, the remake, like I said last time, you have everything mapped in your head, even though it's been years and years since you've played it, and it looks a bit different. You still kind of know what's what. So I just want that fresh experience where I have no idea what's around the corner.
Yeah.
Would you say, Swinny, it's probably the best game series you've ever played?
It's close to it. I'd still say Zelda takes the cake, but it's it's quickly becoming one of my favorite series of all time. But this week I have been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but not as much as I'd expected because I was a little cheeky and I didn't really play it until yesterday properly. Because I recompleted all of Final Fantasy VIII again. I just couldn't help myself. I just went through the whole game again.
On Game Pass.
So, and had a new achievement list and everything. So I'm like, okay, this is... And I tell you what, with this game, there's so much I want to say about it, but it's not the time for it. But the one thing I'll say is, man, my feelings on that game have changed so much after now playing it through recently twice. It's such a weird... It's almost like this anomaly in gaming, Final Fantasy VIII. I just can't explain it. I'd love a chance to talk about it at some point. So
yeah, no, I think we've got to visit all the Final Fantasy series for you, because you've played like all of the solo games. Like, it would be cool to get a ranking of where you think they all fit.
Yeah, there's some earlier entries I've got to spend more time with. So that's exactly what I had in mind, is just filling in a couple of those early entry gaps, and then at some point doing a ranking. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. And what I decided as well, I'll probably get through the first little bit of Demon Souls and then put it down. And, given that and Mike, you should jump on this, given that, and this is tied into the show, it's a bit of a teaser about the Game Awards. What we're going to do is do retrospective Game Awards. So we've gone back and already decided that we're going back to the year 2011 to determine what the game of the year for 2011 is, game of some other year. And that's the year that Dark Souls came out, amongst other games. So I'm actually going to start playing Dark Souls.
I'm not even going to bother putting anything else down. It's the clear winner.
Well, I don't know. I've been playing a lot of Minecraft as well. And that game, like, I finally get it now. And I'm like, that is such a good game.
Oh, in terms of overall impact on gaming, Minecraft's probably bigger.
Well, we'll have to talk about this in the special episodes we'll do at the end of the year. Hopefully at the end of the year. I've got to catch up really quickly. But let's get into the first segment, which is around the announcement that we had last week, which is kind of a surprise announcement that xCloud is launching early in a beta phase in Australia. I saw it on Twitter. I signed up like within a minute, and I spoke to the Xbox team as well. Swinny, you've signed up as well?
Yeah, I signed up quite a few days later. And was like, I need to do this at some point. Yeah,
just casually, whatever. And Mike, did you ever sign up or not?
I did not.
No. You probably could sign up and get it right now, because I signed up in a minute and I still haven't been bloody invited. I'm like, I'm ropeable. And I check it, and every time I see Swinny talking about it, I'm like, oh, it's just because my account's too new, because I switched my my account name and everything and started a fresh account. So that was probably not a good idea for this.
Wasn't there also a minimum requirement, I think, of 100,000 gamer score or something? Swinny? I read something about that.
You have to be the number one. You have to be an Xbox Hall of Famer to get the
You have
invite.
to, yeah. They
So
also look at how many hours you spent on Rocket League, and if it's above 300,
You
More than that,
disqualify.
they say nah.
Oh
You're
yeah,
out.
for me, yeah, exactly. So yeah, Swinny, you've tried this. You've tried it on your Android phone or tablet or both.
Both. So I have a Galaxy S9, and I have a Galaxy tablet as well. I can't remember the exact version of it. So I wanted to try both the platforms with a bunch of different games across different genres. So first of all, in Australia at least, there's only a handful of titles that are actually available when you load up the game streaming app.
Oh really? It's not like the
yes.
US one?
So it's not everything that
Oh.
you see announced every week, and that makes sense. They did that with the preview in the US as well. I can't remember the exact amount, but it's probably maybe about 25 games or something. It's a pretty small group because when I'm looking at, okay, what am I going to try? I was trying to look for things that I know I could just jump in quickly and start a game without going through like a lengthy like intro or something like that. And there weren't that many. There's a lot like Borderlands. I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and like test out Borderlands because I know there's going to be a whole lot of tutorial stuff at the start. And even something like, so Tekken 7 was one of them. Even Tekken 7, I'm like, oh, I'll jump in, quickly play a match. And I had to go through all the, user agreement stuff and then all the update stuff and things like that. So it's the idea of just quickly jump into a game. You still hit the hurdle with general game design of the game has to be built to really allow you to jump straight into something. You are literally just launching a game. There's loading times, which I found a little disappointing. I'm like, well, not loading times, but as in like they felt like Xbox loading times, not like a powerful PC version running off SSD kind of load time, which I'm not sure what is powering these xCloud instances for everyone. I would assume they're PCs as opposed to literally consoles sitting there in data centers.
No.
So
I'll explain. So the way it works is they have some data centers in like Southeast Asia, and when you're pressing the buttons, there's some guy over in Manila who's just trying to copy your motion as accurately as possible. That's why sometimes there's a bit of input lag and it feels a bit weird, but just give the guy a break. So
okay, I'm sorry, dude. But yeah, like just loading up, I was kind of shocked about that. And I guess that's because some of these games just haven't been really probably designed with SSD in mind, maybe. I'm not saying that they should load like PS5 games, but that was a little like jarring to me. But so the first game I tried out was Minecraft Dungeons, and I tried that out on my phone because I knew that they had a specific touch interface designed for it when you load it up on xCloud. And I loaded it up, went through, it does a few of the, like intro things, and then it starts playing. And I'm waiting to kind of see where it's hitching, and I'm like, it's actually running damn well. Like, I was shocked.
Really?
I was really shocked. Now, Minecraft Dungeons, I'm not going to say is the most taxing game, but there is actually quite a bit of environmental stuff going on. It's 3D. It's not like, there's still a lot going on. And it actually worked really, really well. Now, I guess I have to explain my setup a little bit. Like, I'm not technical, so I can't, answer lots of questions about it. But I'll basically say that I tested majority of this stuff in my lounge room, which is where my Wi-Fi router is located. So I'm probably in the optimal setup for it. But when I did load it up, the first thing it said was, you're on a 2.4 connection, whatever that is. You guys can probably answer the technical part of that.
Oh, so you're not on like the 5 gigahertz wireless Wi-Fi connection. You're on the old school 2.4 gigahertz.
Yeah, and what
I didn't
they
think
say
it works for 2.4 gigahertz.
So what it said is you're on that. This is optimized for 5 gigahertz, whatever. So I'm like, oh, okay. Well, it didn't stop me from playing. So that's you got to keep this in mind. This is my setup and my experience with this.
Yeah,
and even then,
just to add more color to that, you probably should say you've got like a ridiculous NBN connection at your house, right? Like you got like what 200 megabit or something like that,
to
which
about
is a lot for a show.
250, about
Yeah,
250. Yeah.
Wow.
So, pretty damn good internet connection, but obviously my Wi-Fi
Terrible
setup's
Wi-Fi.
not great. So, but even saying that, just sitting, I was laying down on the couch at the other end of the room, just playing on the phone, and it worked really, really well. I was actually, and the touch interface for Minecraft Dungeons was really cool. I haven't played Minecraft Dungeons normally, so I can't compare it to playing it for controller on natively on a console or whatever. But I was shocked. I'm like, man, I could really see this. It's just proof that this stuff can work even in its early stages. And even with someone that hasn't got a very good Wi-Fi setup, it actually worked really well. But the problem I started to notice, and this is, I'd say, more so my setup than anything else, was if there were hitches in, visually or, gameplay wise, they weren't that you could overcome them. You're not playing these games. These aren't the optimal way to play these games. So this is more like, does it work, and does it work to the point where I like and enjoy these games? Yes. But the audio was the problem for me. Was that you notice a hitch in the audio way more than you notice hitch in anything else. Because if you've got a song playing, as soon as it hitches, it's like, man, like it's really unnerving. So what I found was, if I'm going to play any of these games, I'm probably going to play them with background music off myself with my current setup. Obviously I could, if I go and upgrade it and then test it, and then that stuff is streaming better, then fantastic. But the audio was the biggest problem for me, and that went for all these games. But generally speaking, Minecraft Dungeons really well. Next game I tested was Tekken 7, because I'm like, well, a game I can jump straight into, a game that, like all fighting games, input delay is huge. If it has significant input delay. And I was kind of shocked how well it worked, honestly. It's just sitting there, just whacking away in practice. I wasn't, playing an online match or anything. And I think this brings me to my point that I think these games, even something like Tekken, it's fine for this kind of service if you're just playing it single player and playing against CPU, and you're not playing it to be a pro and pull off like frame perfect things. But as soon as you start getting to that and start talking about multiplayer, that's where I think this stuff will have a huge impact.
I just want to jump in on one point. You know how you were saying about the audio, and this is a teaser for a segment later in the show, just about Slippy, the Super Smash Brothers Melee rollback modification, where I was reading a long article from the developer, and he was actually saying that the sound was almost the hardest part of the whole development that he had, because it's so obvious when the sounds are wrong or they cut off abruptly. And it's almost like we're in Gen 1 or Gen 0 for streaming games. They almost need to buffer the audio in the background and disconnect from the gameplay logic, and then seamlessly smooth over the catch-ups. Because what it's doing right now, it's just feeding you the audio directly. So if there's any hitches, yeah, like you said, it just, cackles or crackles or does whatever it does, right? Which is horrible.
Yeah, and I noticed that for games that have sweeping orchestral kind of music, so one of the other games I was going to mention is Black Desert Online. That's interesting. It's an MMO. I've already had a character that was quite far into that game, so I'm going to load this up. And it worked pretty well, but the soundtrack, again, it has this orchestral music, and as soon as it hitches, it's like, ugh, it just throws you off. And again, my setup is not optimal for my Wi-Fi. Completely admit that if I wanted to do this and I go and fix that, then maybe that'll be completely a non-issue. But just everything else, out of everything else in terms of gameplay, input delay, like the audio was the biggest thing for me. So after Tekken 7, so yeah, just to finish off with fighting games, I think for single player, just playing them for fun, just casually, it's fine. But as soon as you start to get competitive, that's where I think game streaming would be pretty tricky. But again, I'm not on an optimal setup. So it was a really interesting try Forza Horizon 4, because out of all the games I tried, this is the one that visually was probably the most impressive. And man, I never played Forza Horizon 4. I've only played 2 and 3. Man, that game still looks amazing, Forza Horizon 4. It's just like, just watching that running on, I was playing these on my tablet.
Still?
Yeah.
The latest one still.
Yeah, and like I've heard also the upgrades for Series X and that for Forza Horizon 4 are amazing. But
There are, but on that quick note, apparently it doesn't actually hit what it can on PC on some of the settings. It's a really weird. They sort of improved some stuff, but some stuff, for whatever reason, they just kept it fairly low, which is
Yeah.
really weird.
But I will say, after Minecraft Dungeons, I was trying these all out on a tablet, so I wasn't on a little phone screen. I don't have a clip that I can attach it to my controller or anything, so I needed something I could stand up well. But yeah, Forza was pretty good. You definitely, when it comes to steering and input delay, look, there's definitely a delay there. There is a delay, and again, my setup's probably going to extrapolate that. But as just playing, especially in arcade racing, Forza Horizon 4 is not a simmer of any kind. It felt really nice. Like, I was kind of shocked. Again, I'm sitting pretty close to my Wi-Fi as well, so.
So if you're that close, why don't you just plug an Ethernet cable in
to your phone?
Oh, it's gotta go to the phone. I'm an idiot. Of course. All right.
I'd love to see that. That'd be sick.
That dumb comment back. Why don't you switch on?
No, that's going to be the show
5G.
title. Plug an Ethernet cable to my phone.
I wonder if there's actually a way to do it. Yeah, why don't you just switch the 5G on your modem?
I have no idea.
Are you afraid of nanobots or
no? I just
autism or something?
I was just using whatever's set up. Like, I'm, me, I'm not technical, so there's stuff that I could do easily to improve that. I just haven't done it yet. So that's I'm just playing it. Basically, I'm like, okay, how can I experience this with everything I've got set up? Let's see it. And a
lot of people would have that set up, right? So I think it's actually good representation of. Not everyone has 5G enabled on their modems.
Yeah. And the last game I tried was I want to try first-person shooter. So I loaded up Halo Master Chief Collection, and out of all the games, this was the game that got me into it quickest. I was kind of shocked by that because I loaded it up. It's like, okay, what Halo game? I'm like, I want to try Halo 3. Load that up. You do a little bit of a intro part, and then suddenly I'm playing Halo 3. And I've never played the Master Chief Collection Halo 3, so it's interesting to see the work they've done on that regardless. And I was shocked. That's actually pretty good as well. Now, Halo's always kind of been it's obviously very console FPS, so it has a lot of inbuilt or aim assist and stuff more so than most. But it felt nice. Again, I don't know how it would be competitive playing, but I definitely, we talked about that fighting games, first-person shooters are probably going to be the trickiest to get across the line with game streaming. But playing single-player Halo actually felt really good, and that's on my 2.4 connection. And now what I did do is I went down to the other end of the house, and obviously you start to see it struggle down there. I imagine if that's 100% my setup. Like, that is, if you've got something where the Wi-Fi is strong and you've got it, on that 5 gigahertz, whatever, and it's, reaching ends of your house and stuff, you're probably going to be fine with any of that. So, but for me, how would I use this? Honestly, Minecraft Dungeons might be the only reason I'd use it at the moment, because if I'm going to use it in that part of the house where it's working well, I'm near enough to a console where I'll just play everything else that I want to anyway. Whereas Minecraft Dungeons, I can see myself just lying down on the couch and playing on touch controls because, it's just gets you away from the TV and stuff like that. But overall, I was kind of shocked how well it worked. I really was. It makes me think. So I have heard a lot of good stuff about Stadia's technology and how the streaming works with that. And it just makes me just wonder, man, they screwed that up so much, because the technology probably works really well. It's just the model and everything. Whereas xCloud, having this as, and I should clarify, xCloud is kind of what they call it, but don't call it. At some point it may be called just Xbox Game Streaming, which is kind of what the logos are and stuff. But as an additional service on top of something like Game Pass, I think this is fantastic. As a standalone service, would I spend money and would I pay for this? No. But that's also because I don't. For anyone that has limited, TV access where they've got multiple people in the house that are using the TV and stuff, I think there's a use case for that, because then you could essentially jump off. And it does sync your cloud saves and everything. We talked about that last week. It brought across everything I had already, which was pretty good.
Oh, so that was one thing that I just wanted to confirm. So you can continue on where you were at on your Xbox.
definitely.
That's really handy though, because I find I use the Switch mostly because of that, because I can continue on the toilet, in the bathtub, in bed, whatever, right? So
Yeah.
I can see that as a really good use case as well.
Yeah. Now, the only game I really got, so Black Desert, that syncs with the server, so your character's on the server, so that was different. But with Tekken 7, it kept all my progress and stuff when I loaded that up. It didn't
Cool.
keep my acceptance of the user agreement and stuff, so maybe that's console specific. So it treats that, oh, this is a new instance of the game on a new console, so you have to
That's
agree
fascinating.
to it. But
Okay.
that's a small thing, you know. And I hope, hopefully, you don't have to do that each time you load the game up. But yeah, it carries that all across. That's really great. So I think that, you know, if in a case where, you know, you've got housemates or a family and the you can't always use the TV, and just being able to just jump on and continue game streaming I think that's really good. It's almost like the Switch situation, but it's, you know, it's just streaming it. So I think that's a really good use case. But I wouldn't pay for this service separately outside of Game Pass at the moment, just because it doesn't fit my, you know, the way I play games. But I think I was kind of shocked how well it worked, I will say.
Yeah, Mike, like I had the same idea as you. I still feel that, because I'm just, as much as I do desperately want to try this, I just couldn't see myself playing it on the phone all the time. I'm not a big phone gamer. Whereas if this came onto the Switch, it'd be huge for me, because it'd be like, oh, cool, I can like play these games on the Switch. You know, you got your controls integrated in the system and everything. Like that would be huge if they were able to announce that. And then the next level of that would be, you know, if the next Switch, the Switch Pro has, you know, like 5G internet. So you could literally just go around anywhere and probably play it. You know, and I still think Google should have done or figured out a way to do a partnership with Nintendo, because that's kind of like where Nintendo is lacking in, you know, those top line next gen games. If they had a deal on like a very good cloud provider like Stadia or xCloud, I think they would just kind of fill out their roster completely. You know, they wouldn't have to worry about these delays. To Google. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've even seen with Doom Eternal how now that's been cancelled as a physical game, and you know some people are, you know, hypothesizing that it will switch to being a streaming game. I don't think that's the case, but you know, like they wouldn't have to put all that porting effort in, and I don't think they will in the future. They'll just go, this game's too crazy, it's not going on the Switch, we're just going to make it a cloud game.
Yeah, this sold me on cloud gaming being viable as a future thing, definitely. And
that's huge.
The last thing I'll say as well is when you hit, I was using the Xbox controller, when you hit the like guide button, it brings up a very simplified guide, but I was interested to see that you can actually see your friends and join parties and that through the xCloud, which was pretty neat. I wasn't expecting that to be able to actually do voice chat and stuff. Cool. So
too bad TIMECODES doesn't have
no, but
anything,
just if you
the device, so you can't join anyone.
Jump into a multiplayer game, the fact that you're able to actually join a party straight through their xCloud game streaming, that's pretty cool. So
that is pretty
cool.
Cool.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. So awesome. Hopefully you get it accepted so you can try it out yourself.
Dude, I reckon I won't get an invite. I reckon they've blacklisted me or something like that. Because I actually reached out to them because it wasn't working on the iPhone, and then a whole bunch of people subsequently also agreed that, like, hey, you can't sign up on the iPhone, what's going on? So maybe they're annoyed at me as well. They put me on the list. Because they actually asked me what's my gamer tag name or whatever it's called. Seriously, like in a direct message, they're like, what's your actual gamer name? I'm like, here it is. And I'm like, have they just put me on a list?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be cool. And you know, Microsoft have been very, very sneaky. So just segueing to another sneaky game. That's a terrible segue. News this week.
Segue.
So, teaser trailer. Something that people have been wanting for a long period of time. So the Hitman developers, IO Interactive, and have announced their newest game. So this would be following Hitman 3. Is going to be an original James Bond game dubbed Project 007. And I do like here, Swinny, in our notes, this is some BTS, that this will be the 37th Bond game, which is including all the mobile titles. But interestingly, this will be like 9 years after the last console release, 007 Legends, and I don't know, personally to me, I don't feel like any game has really captured the zeitgeist since GoldenEye 007, which was what, like 98 from memory?
Definitely not the zeitgeist, but there have been some decent games. Nightfire, 007 Nightfire is fondly remembered. There's been a lot of crap games like Quantum of Solace. Oh, that was a horrible game. Bloodstone, which was an original game as well that had Daniel Craig in it, wasn't too bad. That was like a third-person game. That was a good shot at it, but it obviously didn't move the needle. But this is really interesting because out of anyone to give this franchise to, there is no one better suited than IO at the moment. This is almost a match made in heaven. That it feels like it can't miss. But from we've seen before, Bond titles definitely can miss. So,
but I mean, like, so we don't know much about the game outside if it's going to deal with where Bond started, like his origin story. But we don't even know if it's going to be. I mean, like we all assume, but we don't know for a fact it's going to be in a Hitman style game, right?
Look, I have a feeling it's probably going to be a third-person game that is much more. It's open, but not as open as Hitman. I still think it'll be a bit more linear, like structure. But the interesting part about this is that, like this whole origin story. So, for anyone that knows, Casino Royale is basically the story of Bond getting his 00 status, and that's kind of his origin story. So it's interesting that they're saying that they're exploring an original origin story. So does that mean it's kind of like a Joker thing where they're telling a totally new origin, or is it just leading up to that? It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think people in general have now just accepted that it's almost like you have an IP and then you can just explore whatever you want, including things that are non-canon. It feels like people don't really object to that anymore, as opposed to even 10 years ago. So I'd imagine they're just going to do something completely new.
Well, I actually, when I saw the run sheet, I actually got in touch with one of the directors at IO Interactive, and I have it in good faith that it's actually a story about Bond's parents and how they met and the subsequent origin of Mr. James.
So it's
I can't reveal my sources though. Sorry.
It's Bond, How I Met Your Mother style. Was that what
exactly?
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, it's not the one that everyone suspects it is, and then at the end, oh yeah, it is actually.
It's exactly that, and it's going to go for about 7 different games all up till you eventually find out who it is.
So I thought where you were going,
really disappointed.
I thought you were going to say, and Bond's parents are killed in front of him outside of a theater where they just watched a play.
In an alleyway.
Yeah. And a pearl necklace, just all the pearls fly over the alleyway.
And there were 7 pearls exactly.
So I don't think they said who's publishing this, or is it kind of said that IO is almost publishing this game?
Don't know. I mean, this is pretty hot off the presses generally, this news. So
because the interesting part with that, so they've confirmed that they're working directly with MGM and Eon Productions, the movie studios behind the Bond franchise. If this goes well, and if IO Interactive are publishing this game, this is actually a huge deal for them because they got I don't know the term, they broke away from ADOS Interactive or IDOS Interactive, right? So I don't know like exactly what happened there with, did they buy the people buy IO back out or whatever, but
yeah, it would be a management buyout.
Yeah, so they're independent. So this is huge. If they're publishing this and if this goes gangbusters, then that could set them up as a huge name, much bigger name in the industry. That's really interesting for me. So
yeah, I don't know why this is not a more common thing, where like yacht club gaming, like Shovel Knight makers. Where they're not just given a license to go make, a new Mega Man game or something like that. Like to me, it just seems so strange that they don't take, like companies don't take more advantage of these, especially these indies or these smaller studios, like kind of almost the classic AA studios back in the old days, to take these IPs on, and it would just dominate. And I think you're right. I think that this has a huge chance because Hitman's a pretty popular franchise, but whack Bond on it, and especially if they could tie it in with when the new movie. I mean, the new movie is already out. I don't even know. The new movies are all over the place these days.
No, it got pushed back a bit.
So it got pushed back again. Jeez.
Yeah, I don't know, because it's so confusing because different countries are getting different things at different times based on...
Or even different states.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But-
No, interesting news. Yeah, we don't even know when a release date is happening. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll keep our eye on it. And then in the next piece of news, we have an update. Something that I love. So we've listed as Apple versus Epic 4, the Down Under edition. So they've paid attention. We've covered this many times on the podcast. I always get excited about the fight between Epic Games and Apple, and now they're taking the fight down to our shores. So being the nerd that I am, I actually read the summary. What do you call it in Australia? I can't remember the filings that they had for the lawsuit, and it's kind of interesting. Like I read through it all, and they've tried to link it into Australian consumer law as much as possible, which, just for especially international listeners, Australia has some of the most protective for the consumer laws and protections in the entire world. We even have policies where Sony have had massive refunds. So I think when Fallout 76 came out in Australia, you were entitled to a refund even if you bought it digitally, because it didn't operate to a level that was acceptable in Australian law, which is pretty crazy.
Well, Steam's refund policy pretty much got brought on by stuff happening on our side with the ACCC.
Yeah, true. So, it's a fairly consumer friendly, which I think is a positive thing overall, because it's still, very incentivized to companies. But there was probably two elements to it as well. It's, Epic continues to want to apply pressure onto Apple. So they are looking at lawsuits in the European Union as well. And then I think they've also strategically taken advantage of the fact that the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, so the ACCC, are looking into the App Store practices of Apple and Google. And I think that's in totality. I think that's, things like microtransactions, kids buying games, all that kind of stuff, the splits. So they're investigating that at the moment, and I think Epic has taken advantage of that. And then I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Do you think it's a coincidence with all this lawsuits from Epic that now Apple just randomly has announced that they're going to alter the commissions for developers that have gross revenues of less than $1 million from 30% to 15% their commission?
This is interesting. Like, this is so much of a coincidence that it feels like it's like this can't be a coincidence, but also I know this stuff takes so much time to plan that unless if Apple knew that Epic were going to put this this filing in Australia well ahead of time, and then kind of planned, okay, we're now going to implement this what they're calling the App Store Small Business Program. So what is it? Earning less than 1 million sales revenue per year on. I don't know if it's all games or it's probably all their games. I guess they're publishing on the App Store.
It would be in their their developer account. So it'd be everything under the developer account.
It could just be, I'd say, really bad timing for Epic, because like a lot of the whole thing that the ACCC was talking about in September was about this whole the commission and stuff as well. So it's almost like this is I don't know about enough about the amount of developers that would fall into this versus ones that fall out. Obviously Epic fall well outside of this, but yeah, it's interesting timing. It really is.
Yeah, look, I certainly think that this has become a big PR war more than an actual legislative law, even though that they are fighting it out in courts. I think I've said this before, but I've really struggled to see how Epic are going to win any of these court cases. And in fact, they've lost most of the summary judgments that they've had, which is not great for them, obviously. But I think it's more about that pressure, that public pressure around, is this fair? Why can't I do more with my phone? Like the fact that I can't even install it on my phone if I choose to, and I'm happy to take the risk, seems a little bit on the nose. Like this is not brand new technology. And also it's not like they're selling the phones at a loss to then recoup it through sales of like apps and things like that. Like they're making money on selling the phone just outright. And then the
But
other
what?
thing, yeah, go on. Sorry.
And I was going to say, and it'd be interesting to see how this goes. How much control should a provider of a service have in the end? You mean you can't open it up completely where anyone can effectively do whatever they want on your platform. There's a certain level that needs to be maintained, right? And there's certain, I guess, rules that they set that if you want to go into their platform, you have to abide by. So it's interesting that something like the ACCC comes in, because all of a sudden people effectively feel entitled that their game needs to be available on that particular platform, or something that they make needs to be available because too many people have iPhones. Like, what do how do you draw that balance between it's a privately owned platform versus no, you need to make it open to whatever now?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I think part of it, there is an element of goodwill that has to be with all of these things, because if you do the sort of the mental experiment, like what happens if Apple says, well, we just don't like a certain developer and we're just going to boot them. I mean, everything in their agreements say that they can do that. Like if they just go, hey, we don't like the politics of this developer, so we're just going to turf them off the App Store. Now, I think people would be outraged by that and up in arms about it, right? So there is a level of goodwill that all of these companies have on their platforms. So, you can expand it out to say like Nintendo, Sony, Twitter, Facebook, everything. And I do think there's an element of fairness here that has to play into this. And I think it's really... Yeah, go on, sorry.
No, so I was going to say, how do you draw the line again as to what fairness is? So, for example, you could argue that from a consumer's perspective, in-app purchases for Fortnite is actually a negative thing. That it's causing a lot of people to lose money. It's causing some fraud. There's a lot of things that you could probably argue are actually negative to a consumer in some ways. It's good to have that option, but it leads to a lot of negative consequences. So you can almost say that Apple have, from a moral perspective, almost, they can take a stand and say, no, we don't want people. I mean, I know that's nonsense. It's not the reason why they would do it. It's the bottom line in the end. But they could actually even take a moral stance and say, we don't want to do it because we believe that games like Fortnite and their microtransactions and in-app purchases are actually negative to the community.
I mean, like that, yeah, but they would find that. I mean, like that's their whole business model now, really.
Yeah, well, exactly. How do you then argue that? Yeah,
I don't think they're going
to do that.
So,
but yeah, look, I think ultimately though, like there is a level of how this is perceived and how it's perceived as being fair or unfair, and I think it's super smart for Apple to do this 1 million sales discount for people, because I've already had friends go, oh, they're like, how good is that? Maybe, people should get back into this stuff. And for them, in terms of profit, like they're not making money off the people making less than 1 million a year. Like they've probably got most of their money from people way above 1 million. Like I would even hazard to guess to say they probably have like 80% of their revenue from developers that are doing more than $1 million a year, probably even more as a percentage. So it's not going to cost them very much at all, I don't think. And yeah, like it's good from a sort of strategic positioning sense. And just the last thing for me on this one was GeForce Now, and then all of the developers are trying to do this, all the sort of linking it into what we were talking about, xCloud. They're all trying to figure out how to start streaming things over Safari, and GeForce Now supposedly has got it working. So you can like load games in through Safari, and they're actually now working with Apple to be able to put Fortnite on that. So like, I think they've got to keep their eyes peeled for that as well. And knowing Apple, I would not be shocked if they tried to lock that down as well, which would, I think, really cause a lot of drama. So yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. And, with Fortnite being kicked off Apple, Fortnite being previously nominated for Game Awards, takes us to our next topic on the Game Award nominees. So this week, we actually had the nominations for the Game Awards. From memory, the Game Awards is on the 10th of December. And like this show, instead of being in front of a live audience, it's actually going to be at a studio, and they're going to do it live. And it's also a bit strange. They're doing it from LA, Tokyo, and London. So I think they're using the London Philharmonica. What do you call it? No, what do you call those things? Not opera.
Orchestra.
That's wrong. Orchestra. Sorry, that's it. So yeah, like I actually am really looking forward to watching it, and we should look at, do we do like a reaction or live reaction on of it, or we'll figure out that offline maybe.
I'm just interested to hear what a Philharmonica sounds like.
Isn't that what it's called? The London Philharmonic.
Philharmonic.
Oh, is it?
Phil with the harmonica.
Nice. Philharmonica, yeah, that's a new instrument played by 100 people.
Which games are up for?
Well, do you want to go through them, Mike? And,
Sure.
and maybe put them in order of what you think that should win quickly.
In order of what I personally think.
Yeah.
Gosh.
From
Okay.
number 1 to 6.
So let's.
Well, we'll do it the other
go
way
with...
around. Do it the other way around. Do the one that you think is last, all the way up to your number 1.
It's tough though. It's really tough. How about I just go them in whatever order, and I'll quickly do a debrief, because I think I've played all of them. So Animal Crossing: New Horizons. That's the first one. Now, both you and I have played that significantly, I would say. I think it's an excellent game. Huge reach. There's so many people that I think played that weren't even, traditional people that play a lot of games.
Yeah.
So my girlfriend got hooked on that. I think she probably put in more hours than I did.
Well, yeah, it sold like 26 million in 6 months. So it's definitely got people who have never played games before. Yeah. But I was actually shocked to see it nominated. Were you, Swinny?
I wasn't shocked, but I think I know you've got a hunch about it, and I think you might be right. So we'll get to that.
Okay. I think it's an excellent game. Is it game of the year for me? Probably not. I did my thing, and then it feels they try to go kind of broad, but then it felt a little empty towards the end, if that makes sense. There just wasn't a lot of stuff you could do. Pretty hollow at the end.
That's Animal Crossing.
Swinny's the Animal Crossing hater. He's just like, I played it on the Nintendo 64, the Japanese translation. I don't need to play it ever again.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Doom Eternal is the next one.
So that's the next one. Yep. So I have also played that. I haven't finished it. I don't know how far into it I got, but I got into it enough to go. Excellent game.
Did you play Doom? It's 2016.
Yeah, I that one I actually did finish. So to me, this was a bit of an extension of that. Obviously,
very similar. You didn't find it was different. Interesting.
No, I thought it was different, but it wasn't. It was an evolution of it. It wasn't the impact I think that 2016 had, where it felt like a fresh, new, different experience that went back to, that old school type of shooter that is arcadey, fun. Whereas Doom Eternal just felt like a bit of an extension of that, more polished, added a bunch of new concepts, but it still felt like Doom. So excellent game. I do wonder though, because of, I guess, a lot of people play that game, but I don't know if as many people would have had access to it as, say, Animal Crossing as an example. And I don't know.
Obviously not. Animal Crossing sold more than everything on this list combined.
Yeah, but it is also available through. Is it not on Game Pass now?
Doom Eternal?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Game Pass.
So it's, in terms of reach, I can also see that. I don't know what the numbers are. I'd be interested to see. I could see a lot of people probably have downloaded it on that as well.
That's true.
You probably get close to 26 mil. Did you guys play it yet?
No, I'm waiting for it to come on PC on Game Pass.
I'll just get ahead of this. I haven't played any of these games. I'm just getting ahead of this.
Mike has played all of these games, and Swinny's played.
I have, but
none.
To be fair, 3 of these are PlayStation exclusives.
So the next one is a PlayStation exclusive, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yep. Which I don't know what is wrong with me. So I was looking forward to this game probably more than any other game in recent memory. I loved Final Fantasy VII as a kid. Finished it, put in I don't know how many hours into that one, and I love the remake, and I love playing it. And then I don't know what happened. I kind of just dropped it, and other things got in the way, and I never went back to it. So now that I have the PS5, I'm hoping I can start it again and play it in 60 FPS. But I'm reading that it doesn't actually have that yet. They haven't patched that through, so there's no incentive, I guess, to start that again. But I could totally see how this would, to me at least, if I had finished it, would probably be a pretty strong contender, if not the number one. So what would you rank Final Fantasy VII, obviously the original, roughly in your list of Final Fantasy games, Swinny?
Oh wow, okay. It's dropping. It's dropping over the years. Let's just put it there. Let's
How
put it
dare
there.
you?
Let's just put
How
it
Final
dare you,
Fantasy six
sir?
in front of it for
Come
sure.
outside in the car park right now.
It's that's a topic for another day. What's the next
Okay.
game?
Okay,
Ghost
so the
of
next game,
Tsushima.
that's right, Ghost of Sushi, which I have also played. I don't know how much I talked about this last time. I thought it was an excellent game, super solid experience. The thing is, I found it had that sort of early Assassin's Creed vibe where / any Ubisoft title really, where it felt like it took one concept and then just multiplied it 20 times across the map. And as a result, there wasn't really that sense of exploration that you get from some other games. So if I was to use, Demon Souls as an example, you feel like it's awesome exploring every single tiny corner of every map. Granted, the maps are a hell of a lot smaller because there's something there. There's something different. It's all handcrafted. It's awesome. And whilst obviously Ghost of Tsushima is also handcrafted, a lot of the parts feel like it's just a rehash of the same thing.
You're talking about two very different genres. One's an open world
I know
game.
that. I know that. It's really hard to
and
compare
one's
the
not
two.
an open world game.
I'll use a different example. Grand Theft Auto.
Okay,
Big open
okay.
world. To me, there was always more of an incentive to go check out a different place because everything felt fresh and different.
Oh,
Whereas
really?
with
I find
this-
it very repetitive as well, to be honest.
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, every game in the end is going to be repetitive to some extent. Obviously, that's the nature of games. But I just
Hey,
feel
no,
the
it's not.
map was
Pong's
more
not
unique and
repetitive.
handcrafted. Whereas with this, it felt like it took, say for example, the typical thing you get in Ubisoft games where you have an enemy camp and you need to go and take it out and kill the leader or something. Same sort of concept, maybe 10 different times with different layouts and stuff like that. Now, that's not a huge deal breaker in the end because there's so many things about this game that are excellent. The gameplay was fantastic. I can easily see this as being game of the year for a lot of people.
Wow.
Yeah, I totally could. Yeah,
Only
it isn't for me personally, but I totally could.
If only there was an Assassin's Creed game that just came out that just actually went against that whole concept. That'd be interesting.
Only.
So I think Ghost of
Goose of
Tsushima was a bit of a shock for
Tsushima.
everyone in terms of
I so
how-
want to see Goose of Tsushima now.
Goose of
Oh,
Tsushima.
that's the episode title. I'm sorry.
It's like the Untitled Goose game with some katanas.
So I think it did surprise everyone because, at first there was a lot of hype for it. And then for whatever reason, people started to just be really fearful of the game and it was going to suck or something because they didn't really show much of it just before it released. But I think in the end, like that's just blown away people, that game, and all the DLC that they've had, free DLC post the game actually coming out. And I think it was a little bit like the next one, Hades, where that surprised people how good that was.
Yeah, I talked enough about that one.
Yeah.
Next.
And then the last game, and this game to me is like odds on, clear favorite. I'd be very, very shocked if this next game's not going to win.
Yeah, same.
The Last of Us Part 2. I was thinking you were going to say it.
No, I was waiting for you. Again, I've talked about this enough. Excellent
Yeah.
game. Loved it. Not as
But
much as the first one. But
So out
again,
of
personal
these
preference.
6, which one would you say is your game of the year? Because you're the only one that's played all 6.
So
Just
I'm
out
gonna
of
have
these
to go.
6.
Out of these 6, I'm going to have to go with The Last of Us purely because it's the one that I finished properly. Whereas the
But-
other ones, I didn't give them enough justice, if that makes sense. I
But
maybe got halfway.
if you ranked them all and said, hey, any game that was released this year or in December last year, you would put Demon's Souls as number one?
Yeah, of course. But then
Interesting.
Any
Interesting.
year, any decade.
So I actually read all the rules and how it worked. So Demon's Souls was within the cutoff for this year, right?
So how come it's not on the list?
Well, some games don't make the list, right? But supposedly, like I've read other interviews with Jeff Keighley, and he's sort of like, look, even with the rules, like they bend the rules. So they will get. I think they've added Among Us into some of the nominations. Is that right, Swinny?
I believe so, yeah. So there's about 30 different categories,
Yeah,
and Among Us is in Best Mobile Game.
which came out in 2018. So and so people went at him about that, and he goes, look, it wasn't relevant, and now it is relevant. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. I actually like that they do it
I
like
think
that.
that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I mean, it's game of the year, not game made that year.
Oh,
So
don't know
you
about
can
that.
kind of, yeah, I think that's a fair enough one, because you can get certain games that have a massive resurgence, and maybe they were made 5 years ago, but they're super popular and they have this massive impact on the gaming community that year. And I think that, that's a perfect example. Yes, it's a mobile game, but you could probably also include it as part of Steam, because it's also available on Steam. And you can see how it's fair to have it, because it's huge. Like, I mean, there's so many memes about it. Everyone's talking about it. There's so many people playing it.
Yeah. And was like, there's one game for me that stood out that I was like pretty surprised it wasn't nominated. Was there
Which
anything
one?
for you guys?
Not in the game of the year, but I've got a couple of
Really?
notes
Okay.
about other categories. So when you've
Yeah, I can't think of it, because a lot of the big games that I can think of, I think, came out last year, at end of last year. So,
So for me, I was really shocked that Half-Life Alex wasn't on the list for Game of the Year.
oh yeah,
Just
wow,
like
'cause that came
all
this year,
accounts
didn't
that
it?
people have played it, they've said it's just so amazing and it's well deserving of being a Half-Life game. So yeah, I was just really surprised it wasn't nominated.
Thanks for reminding me. I have a copy of it, actually, that I never played. I know, another one of those games. I'm such an idiot. I have all these amazing games, and I haven't touched them. Oh, God.
So Swinny, other categories?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of them, but some I just kind of want to call out. So it's interesting that for best score in music, that Doom Eternal's up, because we know that there was a whole massive controversy about Doom Eternal with Mick Gordon and id Software and everything there. So it'd be
And
interesting.
they actually did say the composer. They're like Mick Gordon.
Yeah. So
what are they going to do? Because I think that's a bit controversial as well, because it wasn't just one composer in the end.
Yeah, but I mean, Mick Gordon's actually performed at the Game Awards previously. So
what happened, for the people who are out of the loop?
Do you want to run through it quickly?
A lot to do with. Look, I'm not going to give all details because I don't know all the details, but it got to do with the official soundtrack of Doom Eternal. So
I know, like, because I've read all of it. I was like really interested in what happened. So just very, very briefly. So Mick Gordon, Australian composer, very, very cool. Did Doom 2016, and he did do Doom Eternal as well. They wanted to do, because everyone loves the soundtrack so much, they'd promised to release like a vinyl version of the soundtrack, so like an original soundtrack composition with the game, so with Doom Eternal. And they actually delayed the entire collection because Mick Gordon wasn't able to deliver the composed tracks on time. And then Hugo, the guy who runs id now, he kept on like personally reaching out to Mick and was like, what's going on? So he was like, reaching out 3 weeks before they had to print it. Like, can you send us the files? Can you send us the compositions? Then they ended up having to use one of the internal audio guys. So he's not like a composer. And he did like mixes of some of the songs, and they used other songs from Mick himself. And they created the soundtrack because it was so overdue, released it. And then there was a whole bunch of people that were complaining about it because it was like some of the tracks, the way they were composed were like perfect. And then others were a bit like just not to the level that you'd expect. And it turns out that, some were composed by one person who had to do it under like duress almost, and like had to really quickly get through it. Yeah. And then Mick came out and saying, oh, this is crap. I didn't do these ones. They're horrible. And basically at that point, it was like, okay, well, the relationship with this guy severed, which is unfortunate because, there was such a good like branding between those two creators.
That we talked about this last week. Sound is such a critical part of a game, and the music in that is just perfect. So,
but it's interesting though, because the new DLC obviously doesn't have Mick at all. And I never really hear much about that, like in terms of people saying, oh, it just doesn't sound as good or whatever.
A lot of people probably don't even know about it, you know what I mean?
Maybe.
I wasn't in the know. I played both games and I didn't actually know any of that.
So he did do Doom Eternal.
Missed. Yeah.
So it's just, he did all the tracks. It's just like when you compose it into like a CD or a vinyl or something, you have to remaster it. Because obviously it's different for a game, the way that they structure it with the dynamic sound. So
yeah, of course, yeah.
A couple of
so
other
what happens
things
if he wins, dude? Swinny, do you reckon he's going to actually accept the award?
I think he will because...
But will they let him? Because this is like a Kojima thing, right?
I think, look, yeah, but
he's the new Kojima.
I don't think id Software as Konami's a very different beast than id Software. So, but yeah, so just some other notes I wanted to make. So it's good to see Tell Me Why in Games for Impact. That's really, really great. Obviously, I played through that earlier this year. Spiritfarer as well.
Mm.
Now, innovation in access. Sorry, I can't say this word.
Ah,
Accessibility.
Now that's going to be the show title.
Accessibility, yes.
Yes, innovation in accessibility. That's actually really cool because when you start up Valhalla, like we'll get to Valhalla soon, but it's just something to mention here. There's actually a lot of accessibility options, way more than any other Assassin's Creed game. So it's actually
Yeah, I've heard
interesting
about
that they've actually put this in here. And the last thing I wanted to mention was they've got best multiplayer game, and they've put Animal Crossing New Horizons up for it.
Oh no, that's
That's
bad.
not really a multiplayer game, is it?
The multiplayer is horrible.
Exactly, like there's nothing
Yeah, I
in
wouldn't
there.
really call it multiplayer
There's
at
nothing
all.
in there
It's
to
just
like
sharing.
We've talked about before the fact that like there's so many little things Nintendo could do just to facilitate and make a huge like community out of the multiplayer with that,
Yeah.
and they just don't do it.
I still laugh at the fact that my girlfriend and I shared the same island, and we would collaborate and do everything together, and take turns, and we'll give each other items, and I'll build stuff for her, and vice versa. And you and your wife, you guys had to get completely different switches for that game.
Well, do you guys have anything else to cover on the Game Awards? Because
Nah,
you've just
that's
opened
enough.
up the greatest segue ever.
Da-da-da-da-da.
So beautiful segue. Thanks for that, Mike. Animal Crossing. So there was a news update. So the winter update, but it's summer update for us. And buried at the back end of the winter update was the announcement that they've finally given the ability for people to transfer their whole island to a new Switch, or
Nice.
transfer just a resident from the island to another Switch.
Okay.
So, you know, your situation, you could literally move off your island, or your girlfriend can move off your island and, you know, have her own Switch and her own island.
It'll most likely be me that gets kicked out, but yes.
Well,
That
I
sounds
don't
good.
know if that's true, because I think it's the island resident, like the head resident or whatever. I don't think they can leave.
I think I'm the head resident.
Yeah, there
That's
you go.
okay.
There you go. And there's all like, you know, there's all these rules. It's a bit finicky. It's quite crazy, actually. You have to install an app. It's got like an actual app that you have to install on the Switch.
Why the
is
hell?
that? Yeah,
Why
why
the
do they
hell?
make so many
What?
hoops you gotta jump through for something as basic as that? I don't get it.
Why
I
not
think
just
it's a-
add
It's like
something to the
they
game?
trickle in quality of life improvements just so they have something for people to, I don't know, look forward to every release or something. Why can't they just make all those things the base game? I don't get it.
Look, Nintendo's not good at that kind of software engineering stuff. So
It's horrible. It's
I
really
think-
just annoying.
I think what it is, this is my theory on how they've done it, right? Because when you're in the game, you're editing the code and then you're also accessing the save file. So I think they're looking at it and going, let's install an app so then the other app isn't live. They can edit the save data. I bet that's what it's doing. It's editing the save data and then like verifying. Because Nintendo, one thing about Nintendo, they are obsessed about you not being able to duplicate or like try to generate new items or anything like that. So it's very specific. It's like you have to be online, you have to have both switches on, they both have to be up to date, both on the same firmware, not booted into the actual games, and then boot into that app that does the transfer. So it does, I bet it does this thing where it's like, it will like remove it from one switch, have it on the other. So you never get a scenario where you can actually duplicate it, but you may be able to risk having losing your resident altogether or your island altogether.
But I mean, why do they inconvenience so many people that would not want to sit there duplicating or cheating or breaking the system anyway? In a game which, by the way, isn't even really a multiplayer game.
Correct.
So what are you going to do? Like duplicate items and then do what with it? It's not a competitive game. It's you'll
know, but they're
share
obsessed
something
about
with
this.
someone.
They've done
It's
like,
such a stupid obsession. It doesn't even make any sense when you think about it.
So there was a trick that you could do to duplicate any item, and they patched it out so quickly. Like they literally
Of
released
course.
just this little, you know, 0.0.01 type patch just to get rid of it.
That reminds
But you can still time travel and stuff to cheat
Well,
and do
no,
other
no,
things.
they changed that as well. So you can't.
They have.
You can time travel backwards, but it's very hard to stop anyone doing that. But you can't time travel forwards. If you time travel forwards, it does nothing now.
Ah, okay. Well,
Because before it
they
would
patched
trigger
that
the
too.
events, but it doesn't do that now.
This whole thing reminds me of. Did you guys ever trade Pokemon back in the original Game Boy days?
Yes, you mean like on the game?
The game, yes. So
Yeah.
with the transfer cable between two Game Boys,
Yeah,
and
yep.
how there was this trick where you could like disconnect at a certain time, and it would keep a copy of the Pokemon in each on each version of the game.
I do remember that. Yes.
And
yeah.
so I had a friend of mine that's like, oh, I really want this. I had like a level 100 Articuno, right? Which all my Pokemon named after wrestlers. I can't remember what his name was, but it's probably Stone Cold or something.
Stone Cold,
because it was an ice Pokemon. But and he's like, okay, let's do this. And then he disconnected, and none of us got it.
So he was lost. It was gone into
So it was
the
lost in the ether.
Lost him.
Wow.
I could just
You ever
imagine
wondered
Shigeru
what happened
Miyamoto
to that
laughing in the
Pokemon?
background.
Just
I was so shattered. Like as a kid, like it took ages to get a Pokemon to level 100 back in the original one, and I'm like, oh my god.
Do you still talk to this guy? I assume not.
No. Why? What? Am I going to be like, can you go into the ether and get my old level 100 Pokemon?
No, but I can imagine how this would just completely destroy a friendship.
I wasn't happy, but I mean, it wasn't really, I wouldn't say it's his fault. Like, we were trying to do something super dodgy. It was on me for agreeing to it.
Wow.
You could use the save editor these days and generate it. There you go. You can ring him up and move it on. So the other thing, and I should say, my wife, who is obsessed about Animal Crossing,
She still plays it. Wow.
dude, she plays it all the time. It's like 500 hours or something like that.
Holy moly.
She so for a Christmas present, I'm getting her like pretty much all of the amiibo cards, and
That's what that photo was. I was wondering what that was.
We did a whole
Okay.
segment on it, Mike. You gotta listen to the whole segment.
So I sent, so this is behind the scenes stuff, but I sent you guys a photo, and guess how much as a percentage of the cards that I sent through? Like is that like 20% of the
10.
cards that we got?
10%. 10%.
10%.
I'd say it's like about 3 or 4%.
What? Can I ask how much that all costs?
It's more than a PlayStation 5.
Okay, so about $1,000.
It's a lot. It's crazy. It's insane.
These are all for her, and she intends to use them, right? It's not.
She loves them,
collector's
dude,
thing or
man. So
something?
she only opened up a few packs.
Yeah.
And she's got like these penny slips, so like protective slips on them.
Wow.
And she just she looks at them all the time. She just like opens it up, looks at
Amazing. Dude, your
She
children
loves-
just get ignored now. They're sitting there starving,
See, Mike-
crying out.
Mike,
No,
I-
okay, can I just say? So she actually, with our son, our eldest son who's 3, she's like, oh, I don't want to open it in front of him because I don't want him to touch it.
Oh my god.
Hey, Mike, I even suggested
as parents.
that because apparently, Intergot, you were saying that she doesn't plan, or the whole point of this was collecting as opposed to using him to scan into the game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I said, well, can't you just like figure out some way to like get the PDFs and contact a printer to print them out? And like, and he said that they'd get divorced over that if she found out he'd counterfeited.
Jeez.
Amiibo
Oh, wait,
cards.
can't you load them into the game and then you still have the physical card, right? So what's the...
Oh, she's just not interested. Like, I think she might use some of them to load in because you can scan the cards and get that resident, that animal resident to come to your island. But, she still said the other day, she's like, I can't believe Swinny suggested to counterfeit this. That's just ridiculous. Like, what a crazy suggestion. Like, she was so angry about it.
Did you guys, on that topic, I was watching this video about the Pokemon cards and how there's a huge industry about opening the cards.
It's massive now. It's
Did
resurgence,
you see the one? I forget the guys who ordered a pack. It was a video talking about how there's some shady things happening in the whole community. And there was a group of guys who run a big YouTube channel, and they ordered a pack. And I don't quote me on this, but it was like $200,000 or something they paid for
Are
it.
you talking about Logan Paul? Are we talking about?
No,
this was
it's-
post that.
I think
they
this is critical, I think.
Yeah,
Oh,
something
yeah,
like that.
Moist
It was
Critical,
it was
yeah.
the same guy who I think gave the packs to Logan Paul. The same dude who they used to get their hands on this pack. And anyway, when they went to open it, it was fake.
Oh,
It had already been opened,
no, that's not-
resealed,
that's not
all this
critical, that's
dodginess.
fine.
It was completely dodgy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's becoming common. I think with Animal Crossing, there was a point where people were counterfeiting them because, per card was like $100, but
That's
right now,
nuts.
like, it's gone back to normal. But the one that I'm more familiar with is with and now this sounds really nerdy, but with NBA cards.
Okay.
The
I've got a few of
86
those.
season,
Tell me
which is
more.
when Jordan started. So like his rookie season
okay.
card is worth
Yeah.
like heaps of money, like tens of thousands of dollars, like even a decent version of it.
Really? Wow. I need to dig up my old cards. I've got a whole bunch that I bought.
Well, the trick with it
Let's
is
go.
though, with these cards when they came out, right? They actually had a specific order. So as soon as you open the pack and you see the first player, right? They're supposed to be randomized, but they're kind of not, right? It's like as soon as you see that first player, there's a set order of who's next. So basically,
people can just fake that as well, though, right?
well, no, but some of them are too stupid. So what people were doing was they were making these fake ones, and people were opening it up and going, "Wait a second, this is not like the right order. Like this is an order that doesn't exist for these cards." And because people are opening it on YouTube channels and stuff like that, like recording it for it, they're like got it on tape. They're like, "Well, wait a second, you sent me this pack. This literally cannot be the ordering of the pack." And it's like the pack is like. It's I love this kind of stuff because it's so crazy. What people are doing is like they're heating up the pack or something to loosen the glue or something, or like removing the foil some way without actually damaging it.
Yeah,
And
they
then
do that
taking out
with
the
Hot
good
Wheels and stuff
cards.
like that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just heat it
so
up and then they
crazy.
take off the top and
It's so bad,
amazing,
man.
isn't
It's
it?
so bad.
Super bad.
And we should point out as well with the Animal Crossing update. So they're also upgrading your home storage. So if you've paid off your house, you can upgrade it to 2400 slots. And there's new reactions, hairstyles, and then there's new events coming up. So there's Turkey Day, which is Thanksgiving. There's Toy Day, which is the day before Christmas. And then there's New Year's Eve events, which I find hilarious that they refuse to use the actual names for these things. Like they'll call it something else. It's so weird, don't you reckon?
And it's like me, like I prefer, I'm not religious in any way, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to use Xmas, right? I'm like, I'm going to use Xmas all the time until I realize that Xmas just means like Christmas, same thing. It's just X literally means Christ. I'm like, God damn it, damn it.
Nice. And sticking in Nintendo space, we had an update. So I think you described this as the least Nintendo thing that you've seen in a long time. So
Yeah.
Nintendo, like randomly published a 1.1 update to Super Mario 3D All-Stars Collection. And, they had as the headline on Twitter, hey, we've fixed the inverted controls, which we did mention actually when the game came out. Some people kind of can't play when it's like not inverted, and some of the controls, that's actually originally how they were. So some of the speedrunners were like, wow, this feels really wrong, how the camera controls are different. But what was buried, at least in the real like public announcements on Twitter, but it was in the release notes, was they mentioned that you could use the GameCube controller, which I thought, that's kind of interesting because that was the first thing I tried to do with Sunshine and it didn't work at all. And not only did they patch it in that you could use the GameCube controller, it actually allows you to use the analog trigger for the GameCube controller, pretty much mirroring exactly how you could play it on the GameCube, the Sunshine, which, like, I have to say, dude, I was so excited about that to the point where, given that this is a Christmas present, when I fire this up, I actually think Sunshine will be the first game that I play through.
This is huge because the way that they handled it with using the trigger and the bumper was admirable. Okay, you've got to get around this problem, but it is not the best way to play it. Like using that analog trigger. So
what's the issue though? Sorry, can you explain it for laymen?
So I was about to get to that, Mike.
Okay.
So because I don't think you probably have played through Sunshine. So with the GameCube analog trigger, it was literally analog. So the more you hold it down, the stronger that the Mario would shoot the water cannon flood. As soon as you clicked it all the way in and it like clicked, then he would stop on the spot and you could aim in first person or like, with first person control flood, which is integral to the game. And because
it was a very fluid movement, wasn't it, Swinny?
And because the Switch
Come on,
there we go. Because I gave you a laugh. Because the Switch doesn't have an analog trigger, what they did instead was they made it so the trigger, I don't know, was ZR, whatever they call them, right? But the trigger was basically would do the, act as when you were just running around shooting it, and then the bumper would act as you stopping on the spot. So it split the control into two buttons as opposed to using the analog and the button press at the bottom of the analog. So it's awkward, but you got used to it. But this is awesome. The fact that they now patched it, you can just use a GameCube controller now.
That's really cool.
Got to clarify.
It's weird they didn't just include analog triggers on the Switch.
Yeah. So got to clarify. Not only obviously do you need to have a GameCube controller and the adapter, but that also means that you have to play it in docked because there's no way to use the GameCube controller without it being docked. So people that obviously if you wanted to play it in Switch Lite, then you're out of luck. But that's it. That's
it's a real shame that there's no way to play it on the Switch Lite at all. Like there's no way to even, if you've got a stand or something like that and you plug it into the USB-C, like there's just no way to do it. There's not even a third-party adapter or anything for the Switch Lite to allow you, which is a real shame, I think. And I did check, this is not the first time that you've been able to use the analog triggers on the GameCube controller. There was a racing game that patched it in. Cool. And I just thought that was fascinating because I don't know how the tech works then in terms of the analog triggers. Like it's quite weird that they have that functionality in the system.
Well, I guess it probably just reads the pressure that's put onto it as a number from 1 to 255 or whatever. And
no, I get that, but it seems strange to me that it's assigned to the same button as like basically a ZR, I think at least, or an R or a ZR, but it's not actually like this. The Switch doesn't have analog triggers; it's got digital triggers. So why did they even have the analog thing in the background there? But the last thing that I just wanted to say, and just looping back to the sort of, is this a Nintendo move from Nintendo, given this game is going to stop being on sale at the end of March? I think this just further consolidates my point that they want to use the framework that they've built with Super Mario 3D All-Stars to then use as a platform to release more GameCube games, more Wii games, and more 64 games. And, they patched in this GameCube adapter thing working. That means that, they pretty much can release any GameCube game, and then the real hardcore people can use a GameCube controller to its full extent.
That's
and I feel like that's going to happen. And, moving on to our final news topic, in a very, very Nintendo move, Nintendo has taken the world of Melee and really smashed it again. So not from like 2013. Yeah, not from 2013 when they shut down Melee being used at E3. E3 at save me here, Swinny.
Evo.
Evo. Shit, sorry, Evo.
I think it was Evo 2013. That's why you're thinking the.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, 2013 Evo, where they basically said, well, you don't have a license to use our game, so you can't have Melee at Evo. As we have spoken about in the prior podcast, so Slippy, and just to run through it really quick, and for you as well, Mike, essentially what happened was that there's a really good Wii and GameCube emulator on Windows called Dolphin, and everyone was playing Melee through Dolphin online, and it wasn't that great. I remember this, yeah. And there was a coder who started to, he learnt a lot about rollback netcode, and essentially all it means is, there are delays in the inputs, but then it would almost take a sort of a chronology of, well, who actually pressed the punch button first in reality. Like there was a delay of when we received it, but you could almost timestamp those things on each computer and then go, well, wait a second, the other guy actually punched me first. I got it delayed, right? But what they do is then they kind of reverse engineer it in the game so that, oh no, actually I should have punched you. So let's make that be what happens and roll it back to that event.
Okay.
So long story short, it just means that the game, and even for professionals, when they're playing it, they feel like it's actually like a local game, which is, for these guys, and given how twitchy this game is huge, to the point where they're all like, it's super playable, like online now, Smash Brothers Melee. So given COVID, there haven't been any like local events for Smash or any fighting game really in the US or Europe. And even in Australia, the local scene's on hold at the moment. So having this mod, this Slippy mod that allows you to play Melee with rollback netcode, it's been really huge for the community. And now we're starting to see some events get lined up. So we actually talked about the Slippy Champions League recently. And just, I thought that was really, really cool. That led into Summit Online, which is what they just ran recently. And then there's a big event called the Big House, which they run every year in December. They weren't going to run it, and then they switched it to being online. And then Nintendo actually had reached out to them saying, hey, you need to shut this down. You're using our game illegally and we don't want you to do that. And supposedly the big house basically said, well, we're going to proceed with using it. And then Nintendo said, well, okay. And they actually sent them a cease and desist letter to shut them down. And, you know, given that they don't have a huge, war chest, the organizers of the big house decided to shut the whole event down.
Of course.
And it was going to have Melee and Smash Ultimate. So it's kind of interesting that they didn't run it even just with Smash Ultimate. But yeah, so pretty huge. Like the Melee community was super upset about this, and kind of like I do understand where they're coming from.
Why, yeah.
But yeah, like
I can see where Nintendo are coming from in that sense as well. But I feel like their image is the image that they try to portray about being this family-friendly gaming organization, and what they do in real life is so different. They're one of the most guarded corporate entities that you can almost think of.
Yeah.
In so many ways, it's nuts. Yet the games that they do are meant to be so community friendly and open, and it's a complete, I don't know, it's weird.
And Swinny, do you think that, like, I guess two parts of this, like, do you think that they're able to actually do this in the first place? And then secondly, do you think it's right, like, or fair that they've done this?
Well, I think they're able to do it for various reasons, not even knowing the laws, because it's like we know, and the community will admit that they use ROMs, right? Because it's, you have to, and not everyone's going to go through the process of backing their own ROM up, like, the law states for emulation and stuff. But this is one of the biggest arsehole moves I've ever seen from Nintendo. Probably the biggest arsehole move I've seen since E3. I did the same problem as you, Evo 2013.
Yeah, the Evo 2013 that's crazy.
And, you just listen to, like, people like Hungrybox, Armada, U2 King just talking about this. This is essentially, like, this can kill the community at the moment.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
And the reason why this is such an arsehole move is that we are literally in a global pandemic where they cannot run these events in person using proper copies of the games. Everyone who is competing, not everyone, but majority of people competing in this game probably owns a copy of Melee physically.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Or multiple copies and whatever, and has bought all the other Smash games. But they cannot hold these events for public safety reasons, various reasons, right? People can't travel, even if they, could hold these in person. To shut these down during the pandemic is the biggest arsehole move, and I think that's one of the main reasons why
You're never buying a Nintendo product again.
No, why I think this will actually, I think Nintendo will backtrack on this at some point.
Surely they will.
And
it makes
because
sense.
of that reason, there's also the community's being pretty smart. They're setting up charity events now, so that when Nintendo go to shut them down, they can also say, look, you're shutting down these charity events. They need to do this stuff, because otherwise the community will be, at least until the pandemic did. I forget who it said. It may have been Hungrybox said it's like either COVID dies or the community dies. It's like they can't, they can't run these events. And and if anyone says, well, it's just the video game stuff. Yeah, but I mean, communities or anything rely on people coming together and being able to actually do what the community does. And
absolutely,
they literally cannot do it without this mod that has been a lifesaver for the community. Like for Mike, I don't know if you realize like how big this mod was. This essentially brought Melee back.
No, I heard it from you guys before, and I think one of the, obviously the COVID stuff is very critical, but I think the key point is, what is Nintendo really losing when you think about piracy in general? Okay, fair enough, you want to shut down certain things because it's hurting your bottom line, it's causing reputational issues, etc. But as you said, more than likely, all of the people entering these tournaments and playing this already have physical copies. They already paid their bid. They just need to find a way to make that experience better in this situation that we find ourselves in. So what are they losing in the end? It's not like they're losing sales or something. So,
well, and just on that, so, I one thing that I didn't really think enough about was the point that you made, Swinny, that, like, yes, always accepted that this is a bit of a asshole move from Nintendo, but the part around they are really incentivizing people to join in person again for these type of events, which is a very dangerous thing to in a pandemic, especially when you're talking about you need to be close. You need to be close because it's like you're then playing it on a CRT. Like you can't really stretch those things out very far anyway. So physical proximity needs to be close, which is not great. So I didn't really think about that. That's a real dangerous thing that they're now incentivizing. But I was chatting to my wife about this because she's a lawyer and a lawyer in this space actually, like with IT and software licensing and stuff like that. And when I was chatting to her about it, the thing that jumped out to her, and I didn't really appreciate this, but now it kind of makes a bit more sense, is because of this mod is actually transformative and just around like, you know, the law and how it deals with these type of IP licenses. If you transform something and you start to set precedents and, you know, like acceptance around the transformative work, it actually is like a really clear breach of like your licensing rules. Now, like ultimately Nintendo can always just say like, we never licensed you to do this. Like essentially like all of these games, you know, even though they're streaming it, they could shut them all down, and they have done that previously. And I should also just point out quickly that Age of Calamity released in Australia a little bit earlier than other places in the world. People locally bought it from like JB and EB Games, started streaming it on Twitch and got banned on Twitch.
Oh, wow.
Because Nintendo America said you've like, you know, got an illegal copy of this game and you're playing it early, or you've broke embargo, even though it's just a regular punter.
Yeah, in fairness, a lot of people would have done it by changing regions, but a lot of people obviously that did it legit also got banned.
Yeah, like I think the majority probably changed regions, but there was a bunch of Australians, and it's super obvious they're Australians when you hear them, who got banned as well. But yeah, it does seem like Nintendo are starting to change tact again. So there was a period of time where they were being more open. They got rid of their partnership program. I feel like they're going back a little bit again, where it's anything, and I think we've spoken about this previously, Swinny, but anything that's modifying the core game. So if it's just a core game experience, I think they're more okay with it. But if you've modified the game in any way, you know how like people were playing the mods of like Super Mario Brothers 3 and they were getting their channels like copyright striked, which also is in their rules. So there's just some weird things about copyright law and how it all works together, that if you transform things and then they don't defend it, you know, they like people could almost like try to establish it as its own thing. So
I think that's what it comes down to as well, right? They're almost forced to defend it.
Yeah,
in order to maintain that copyright.
Yeah, it's not quite the same as trademark, but the other thing is, and you know, my wife worked at another company that, you know, is pretty much similar to this space where they defend their IP like a Disney. Like basically internally they have a legal strategy which says if anyone's using your IP in a way that transforms it or does something with it, you have to just attack them. It doesn't even matter if you'll lose the case, but it sounds like Nintendo would not lose the case. And it doesn't sound like the community's even going to try to mount a case against this. I think they understand that they would lose it.
Well, what people can do is just... There's a huge hashtag out there, free melee. So if you, it's huge. Like
free,
this is a huge movement. Like you just put in free melee, and there's heaps of stuff going up. Content creators, people trying to push for Nintendo to backpedal on this, and like as we said, like the timing of this is just people don't have any other option for that community. And I like when it comes to transformative changing stuff. Look, I completely understand that. I understand it more so in the realm of something like Project M, where they are seriously changing the game.
Yeah.
And I don't know everything about Slippy. I know that they've made some adjustments here and there to stuff, but you know, if the main thing is okay, adding the ability to have this rollback netcode, then like Nintendo, I know Nintendo don't have history of this, but this is your chance, probably the biggest chance to work with the community to try to come up with a solution that makes it safer for the community to actually be together. Work with the community. Don't do this.
And one thing that I would super, super highly recommend to the community is, like the Melee community, is do not attack Smash Brothers Ultimate and then Nintendo and, you know, Nintendo Smash Ultimate code being terrible and how good the Melee and Slippy code is, because that's kind of exactly why Nintendo is trying to shut this down, because it's actually tarnishing Smash Ultimate, which as a corporate entity, you go, well, you guys aren't even operating legally in the first place, and then you're kind of throwing us under the bus. It's like that's just not like I understand. I'm not saying that Smash's code's good. I always complain about it, right? But I think from a strategy point of view, the community needs to be smarter and understand to allow this to go under the radar. They need to stop like making videos about how crap Ultimate's netcode is compared to Slippy, because that just brings a bigger light on this and gives more incentive for Nintendo to shut it down. And I think you're right, Swinny. I think they need to like backtrack on this decision because it's just so on the nose. And you know, it is a very small community ultimately, and I don't think it's really cannibalizing anything. I think, you know, for me personally, I really got into Ultimate because of, you know, the Melee documentary, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to check this game out more. I probably wouldn't have played it otherwise. So yeah, like hopefully they backtrack on this because it's a bit of a shame. And, you know, for a lot of people that are really passionate about it, it's really sad to see these events getting cancelled. Let's, boys, jump into my favorite segment of the week, every week, the bargain bin, where we can save money. So first up,
by collecting games whenever play.
Yeah, exactly. I think I've got like 400 games. One thing I should just say overall, it is coming up to Black Friday in America, and we are now seeing, even in Australia, you'll have heaps of sales surrounding Black Friday. So I would certainly keep your eyes peeled on any deals. Like they could even have deals coming up randomly, even though there are deals that have been publicly announced. So just starting as we normally do with Epic Game Store. So this week, the free games are Elite Dangerous and The World Next Door. For Nintendo Switch, and I think this is a good call out for you guys as well. So if you're in Australia, they actually have 15% off eShop cards for Nintendo. And they also have 15% off
at Coles. At Coles,
sorry. Cool. Apologies. From the 25th of November to the 1st of December. And they also have 15% off for JB Hi-Fi.
Ooh,
so
okay.
Essentially, if you can actually literally go onto Coles, buy enough gift cards, and you'll be able to buy a PlayStation 5 if you could buy it at the store. Not for 750 Australian dollars. It would be like 630
it's not bad.
Australian dollars, which is insane, right?
Oh,
so
wait,
one day I should...
Wait, they have 15% off of JB Hi-Fi cards. Is that what you meant?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's
so they have.
You could do that if you could actually get your hands on one of those things.
Yeah, on the PlayStation 5.
One day I need to tell people the tricks I used to use when I got my PlayStation 4, basically for free.
Yeah, we have to. Yeah, we'll have to go through because you are like the most shameless person when it comes to those kind of trade-ins or like going back into the store 5 times.
It was all legal. It was all
that.
legal.
Yeah,
I just happened to figure out certain loopholes. Yeah.
So I definitely recommend picking up.
I wonder if the
things.
Coles thing doubles up because my partner sometimes works at Coles. I wonder if she can get like an extra.
So with Coles, you normally can buy third-party gift cards at a discount. Even with using the Coles discount. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, like okay. I'd recommend picking up that because then you can, you know, eShop, that means everything that you're buying is essentially 15% off already. And then you can stack it onto other sales. So Swinny, do you want to run through some of the Switch things that you spotted?
Yeah, just noticed some games that are half price. Kami HD, half price until 3rd of December. Fantastic game. And Hyper Light Drifter, 50% off until really 5th of December. Amazing games. Pick them up if you want something cool to play.
Yeah, and for me, I picked up all the Picross games because Picross S5 is coming out this week or next week. So all the current Picross games are on sale. So they don't always go on sale, but I always play them in the end. So I just pick them all up. I think I'm up to Picross S3 anyway. So that's another thing to pick up. PlayStation, Black Friday sales as well. One thing I'd jump on is the PS Plus. You can get PS Plus during Black Friday for like $56 from Amazon Australia.
Definitely jumping on that.
Yeah, so that's a pretty good deal. And again, as I said last week, if you have a mate with a PS5, hint, then they can log into your account and download all of those PS4 games that are in the PS Plus collection, and then they will work on your PS4. Yeah. And then
really last good one games too.
Last one is Control Ultimate Edition is going to be $30 digitally on PlayStation. And
if that's 60 FPS, I'm grabbing it for sure.
Well, with the Ultimate Edition, we have covered this previously, but with Control Ultimate Edition, that comes with both DLC packs for Control. And when you get the PS5 upgrade next year, it's free, the upgrade. So
Nice.
for $30, you'll be able to get the
pretty good for
PS5
$30.
version of Control, which is going to be 60
But
FPS.
but that's not available until next year. Clarify, Mike.
Yeah, correct. And it's pretty choppy on the PS4, even on the PS4 Pro Control, from all accounts. But I am thinking about picking that up. And then Xbox, I'll throw to you, Swinny.
Yeah, so we've got some games leaving Game Pass on the 1st of December. So on console, you've got Absolver, Dead Island Definitive Edition, Demon's Tilt, Escapist 2, and Wander Song. So if you want to finish any of that up and start them, you've got probably just over a week. And on PC, a game called Fairy, I know nothing about. And on Xbox and PC, a very popular game, Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden, which is like an XCOM style game. So
I've got that on the Switch, but I don't know, I couldn't get into it. Just I could totally see the game being really, really good, but the Switch version is just a bit crap, which is unfortunate because it'd be perfect for the Switch.
I went nuts and being the hoarder that I am, I installed every Metroidvania that was available on Game Pass.
that's awesome.
And I'm like debating, like my whole screen's...
Include the Messenger?
Yes, correct.
Nice.
So yeah, my whole screen's full of like
Metroidvania
Hollow Knight. Well, the Messenger, people do classify it, but I don't want to give spoilers as to why.
It's a really funny game.
I just wanted to mention that because when you said Bloodstained, because Bloodstained I did want to pick up on the Switch, but then, it's on Game Pass and it's, much better to play it on the PC. But so that rounds out the bargain bin, and let's get to your impressions, Swinny. So we're going to cover the two topics, which are the Game & Watch and Assassin's Creed, which I'm really looking forward to Assassin's Creed, but let's go to the Game & Watch first.
Yeah, so I just like you, Intergot, picked up the Game & Watch Super Mario Brothers that was released for the Mario 35th anniversary. That was announced together with all the Mario stuff like Mario 3D All-Stars and Mario Kart Live and all that stuff. And so I pre-ordered this back then, thinking, okay, it might be hard to pick one up on, to walk into a shop. I imagine you can probably walk into a shop in Australia and get one. I don't know if you've heard of that, Intergot. If they're
no, it's completely sold out.
It's
sold out on the first day, I think.
Wow.
I tried to put an order for one on Target, and it was supposedly available, and they cancelled the order straight away. So there was no stock. So
that's interesting.
Even places that were apparently available weren't actually available.
All right, so this thing, I've got it in front of me. It's pretty small. As we know, Game & Watch itself was pretty small, but even when I opened the box, I'm like, it's for some reason in my head, it felt like seemed like it was going to be bigger, but it is the same. It is true to the originals. I'm
not going to say the obvious. Yeah.
No, but can I also say this reminds me of the PS5
right?
when people there's so many impressions about sizes recently for video game stuff.
But when I know you've got it, but you're keeping it for Christmas, I think you'll probably have the same reaction of like, oh, it's smaller than I thought it might be. But
I have the biggest Nintendo Christmas this year. There's so many things that I'm getting for Christmas.
So I guess to frame for context, my only real experience with the original Game & Watch was my auntie actually had a Donkey Kong Jr. Game & Watch. I used to play that all the time whenever I went around to their place. And that was a dual screen one. I never got to play any of the Zelda or Mario ones or any of the countless Mickey Mouse ones and things like that. And I remember just thinking that game was great. I had a whole bunch of other LCD games. Like I had a Pac-Land one and some Tetris ones that had like 50 versions of Tetris in the same game and stuff like that.
I remember those.
And they were all cool. I love those games. Obviously, they're very of that time. But for Game & Watch Super Mario Brothers, so what they've done is they've essentially, it packs in like the actual watch part itself. So I guess there's a clock or a timer, and it also includes...
Yeah, I love how it's got that. It's one of the core things at the back, isn't it? That's highlighted. You can tell the time.
Well, but yeah, that's the whole watch part of the title, Game & Watch. So,
but does it have an alarm? Because you were saying that was the
so
one thing
I'll get to that in a second. So, and it packs in 3 games as well, which is Mario 1, Mario 2, aka the Lost Levels, not the US Mario or every non-Japan Mario, and a version of Ball as well, which has just been modified to look like Mario. There has actually been a version of Mario Ball in the past. One thing it does not have is an alarm, and I will say that that's
really?
on me.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Well, it's Game & Watch, not Game & Alarm Clock.
Yeah, that's the sequel. Game & Watch and Alarm.
So it's an added DLC.
Going back to our reaction when...
to solder it on.
Going back to our reaction when they announced this, we were talking at the time that hey, if it's got an alarm, I hope it's a good alarm. You know, like I could see this actually. I need a new alarm. Blah blah blah. It's got no alarm. That's my fault for not actually just like looking it up properly and going,
wow, Nintendo, you just keep disappointing us this week.
Well, honestly, like I don't know what to do with this thing. An alarm would have helped me actually understand what I can use it for because.
Well, you could always, play the games that it came with.
So yeah, let's get to that. So it's what it can do. So we said it's got that time mode. It's got lots of little Easter eggs. I won't spoil them because honestly, that's all there pretty much is to this whole thing is like little Easter eggs in those games. The actual system itself, the screen's actually quite nice. It's really nicely backlit. It's not a super, it's not like a fancy phone screen or anything, but it's nice. It's you can certainly play the games pretty well on it. The D-pad feels pretty okay. It's clear that it's pretty faithful, so it's not as nice as newer Nintendo D-pads, but that's okay.
Wait, hang on. You're saying that the Pro Controller D-pad is better than this? No way.
Pro Controller D-pad's like 100 times better than this D-pad.
Dude, you are nuts. I'll never agree with you on this point. The Pro Controller D-pad is trash.
Have you used this D-pad?
Well, this is worse than trash, I guess.
It would just be the NES. I've got the reproduction, like the official reproduction NES and Super NES.
This is not like the NES one. It's way smaller.
I'm sure it's better than the Pro Controller.
It's way smaller.
I'm sure it's better than the Pro Controller.
No, Pro Controller is way better.
The size? Please don't tell me it's the size of the actual image on the box.
Yeah, that's right.
Because that's super tiny. That's the case.
Yeah. Anyway, let me continue.
Go on.
So yeah, the D-pad's trash to me, but it's okay. Like I say, it's trash to me, but I think for most people it's okay. The buttons, they've gone with the old rubber style of the Game & Watch, which I understand, but I just don't think they work well from playing Mario. They're not very good for precision platforming. So I think that anyone that you have to adjust to it. Like it just feels a little awkward trying to, jump across, especially lost levels where precision is way more important than Mario 1. But yeah, and that's pretty much it. You've got 3 buttons on the front, one that selects the game. What's cool is if you quit out of a game and go to anything else and come back, it picks up straight where that game left off. So it's like an auto save state, which is pretty cool. It's got a couple of settings in its setting menu in terms of just volume and lighting. That's pretty much it. And you can set the time.
What's the screen like? Do they use an IPS or?
I have no idea. It's just a nice little LCD screen. That's all I know.
No,
so it looks nice.
TN.
You don't have to.
Yeah,
it's TN pen. Oh my god, for $79.
Anyway, let me continue. So. There's no stand at the back, which some of the old Game & Watches used to have. So you can't really use it as a clock. But the problem with that, anyway, is that it would fall asleep after a minute anyway. So
even if you plugged it in.
Well, I haven't sat there with it plugged in. Maybe it does stay on. I don't know. Maybe that's something I will check.
We'll wait for a minute in 1 second.
Yeah, but it comes with a USB-C power cable, but no power adapter, which we see a lot of electronics coming with these days, which is okay.
Which I think is okay.
Yeah.
I
think that's fine now.
A lot of people have charges.
One thing positive I will say about it is it seems a damn good battery life. So I've played it probably about 2 hours in total, like on and off, and it's still showing full power for me. So
wow,
it's only like there's 4 bars, so I don't know, maybe it's like 81% or something. But
yeah, I think it's 8-hour battery life.
Yeah, so it's
playtime.
So that actually makes sense mathematically.
So I think you never basically need to charge this. Like the average person's not even going to play this for more than 8 hours.
Yeah,
totally.
So
in total,
that's pretty good. The speaker's actually not bad. It's a mono speaker, but it's actually pretty loud. But the problem is the placement. So the speaker is on the side of the machine, which means when I'm holding it, my finger muffles it.
Oh, it's so annoying when they do that.
Yeah.
They did that with
for $79. I don't know. I just expected more, right?
Yeah. God.
So
you expected.
So my overall thoughts, right? Because I'm not going to go into the games. It's Mario 1, Lost Levels. If you love those games, and then they're just another versions of those games. Ball I actually liked. I actually had more fun playing Ball than Mario 1.
What was your record?
I don't know, but I ended up playing for like 20 minutes and I just ended up giving up.
That's what I hear everyone saying. It's like
it's too easy.
Just play forever.
It's just too easy.
Exactly.
So honestly, my overall thoughts is this thing is crap as a clock, right? What I'll do, I'll test if it stays turned on, plugged in.
Well, it's not a clock; it's a watch. Okay,
right? But you can't really
like-
strap it to your hand. It's mediocre.
so it's not even a watch. Oh my
No,
god!
their support website calls it a clock.
Yeah.
It says digital clock. To
So-
be fair.
It's mediocre as a gaming platform.
So
I
it's
would have
not
loved.
good as a clock.
I would have
It's
loved.
not
I
good as a
know
game
this is
platform.
Nintendo way, but I would have loved for something, I don't know, like Dr. Mario or something on there as well, or some more stuff. You know, that would have been cool. Because
Tetris. would be
Dr.
perfect on it.
Mario, yeah, but it has to be Mario themed for this one. So
Mario Tetris. That ever exist?
anyway, the whole thing is like, I think, you know, having a couple more things in there to give more to do would have been great. Honestly, it's probably good for kids with a high attention span, because any normal kid's probably going to get bored of it very quickly.
There's
Of
like
which
two
there are, like,
kids
none
out there.
these days,
Yeah.
but okay.
So it's cool as a little novelty. I kind of regret buying it, but
Oh, really?
because
Sell it.
no, but the thing is, right? I got it,
Double your money.
and it's exactly as advertised, right? So I can't complain.
Wow. How dare they make the product and
Exactly.
advertise it, and it
Well,
turns out exactly like what
These
they
bastards.
You
It
didn't
does
let-
exactly what it says on the
These
tin.
dodgy Nintendo people.
Well, you didn't let me finish the second part of that. So it's exactly as advertised. So I don't know what I was expecting out of it, because
Yeah, exactly.
I got it and I'm like, cool. Huh, okay, that's a fun thing. And then you put it down and I'll come back to it like, oh, I'm about to go to
Which is
sleep. I'll just play a little bit of Mario Ball. It's like, okay.
That is exactly what I'd expect.
That's funny.
Yeah.
But
So
I'd love to see if people can mod this and put some ROMs on it, because that would be super cool.
they've already done it.
That would
they've
be
already done it.
awesome. That
Oh
would be
wow,
awesome.
cool. Then I
Someone-
can get Tetris. Yes.
Someone did it the day before it even came out.
What?
They posted a video on YouTube
I would
about
love,
it.
like, to get Dr. Mario on this. That I think would work really well. So
Yeah,
That would
I'd
really
give it,
open it up, wouldn't it?
I'd probably give it a week or two, Swinny, because they've already been able to hack it. So probably in a week or two, they'll be able to build all the tools around how they hacked it. So then you can just add whatever you want on it.
yeah.
Yeah, how do they
So-
do it? What interface does it even have where you can communicate with it?
It's got a USB-C on the side.
But they said it's only power though, so there's no data or anything. So because I was watching
Well, how do
someone
they
break
do
it open. But anyway, there's ways to do that stuff. We know.
Oh, interesting. So maybe you're right, because this one they did open it up
Yeah.
directly to the board.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just checked online. So there was a bit of confusion about the alarm thing. So there were some, reputable outlets like Eurogamer that actually said it has an alarm when it got released, like announced, back in September. So that was obviously wrong. Like I don't know where they came up with
Well,
that, but
If there's
it
an
literally
alarm
said
hidden,
functioning alarm clock.
if there's an alarm hidden in here somewhere, I would love to be
It's one
wrong,
of
but
the
I
Easter
cannot
eggs.
find it. I
Yeah, no,
cannot
there
find
isn't.
it.
No, I just checked. I think Nintendo's confirmed there's no alarm. So
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
wonder
just-
why
it's
though,
just
because
normal.
I mean, it's got a speaker, tick. You need that for an alarm, and it's got the ability to tell time, tick. You need that for an alarm.
Well,
as well.
I don't think the original. So
Why?
some of the original Game Watches probably didn't have an alarm, and it's meant to mimic them. Really.
Vast majority. I think there was only one or two that actually
Yeah.
had an alarm integrated. The
Maybe
other
it's
one
something
that
people didn't think they needed because he's actually going to use this as a clock.
the only other thing I just wanted to point out with this that made me laugh was that how this is a piece of hardware, so it's not connected to the internet and kind of can't be updated at all easily. That they actually, and this is a spoiler, so jump ahead like a minute. One of the 35 secrets or Easter eggs is that Mario actually sings. He can, you can make him sing the time, and there's like a little song.
Oh, cool.
Now, if you've set it into other languages, so in English it sings it, it's fine. But if your language is French, it sings it in German. If your language is Spanish, it sings it in French. If your language is German, it sings it in Italian. And if you're Italian, it sings it in Spanish.
Nice.
I love it.
And they figured it out after it was already produced, and they were like, "Oh my god, we've stuffed this up. Sorry, guys." And they're
I
like,
think it's
English,
cool,
Dutch,
though.
and Japanese. It's fine.
I feel like if they are they going to make more of these, or is
I
it limited to run?
I think probably the last thing we would talk about, and then we'll move on to Swinny's Valhalla. They're chomping at the bit to talk about, but Zelda has the 35th anniversary next year, and that was probably one of the other big ones. So I kind of wonder maybe they'll do a Zelda one. You reckon, Swinny?
Yeah, it makes sense to do a Zelda one, and at some point, I don't know what it lines up with, but it makes sense to do a Donkey Kong one because Donkey Kong is so synonymous with Game & Watch.
That's true.
So
Maybe you'll get your alarm clock then.
I hope at some point they bloody release an alarm clock.
You know what else is synonymous? Assassin's Creed. It's synonymous with you.
Oh, you're doing the segues now. All right, over to
Yes.
you, Swinny.
It's the mic way. Yes. So Assassin's Creed Valhalla released on launch day for Xbox Series X on the 10th of November, and a couple of days later for PlayStation 5. And 10th of November it was released on PlayStation 4 and PC and that as well. So, as was said before, I'm a huge fan of Assassin's Creed. I've played every single one of them with the exception of maybe some of the mobile titles and things like that. But I've completed every single one of them, pretty much all the achievements in every single game as well. When it comes to, I guess, like knowing these games in and out, if I don't know something, I'm really disappointed in myself. So whenever that comes up, I'm like,
Okay,
I should know
quiz.
that. I should know that.
What was the name of the character that would go into the Animus in Assassin's Creed 2?
Desmond?
What was his surname?
Miles?
Oh, come on.
Damn
man.
it!
Come on.
Good job.
That's pretty easy. Anyway, no more spot quizzes. No more spot quizzes.
That was good. That
Okay,
was
fine.
good. And then you should just let him have it. You got wrecked. All right, go on, Swinny.
Okay. All right. So I was playing this on Xbox One X. So I don't have a Series X or a PlayStation 5. So I'm playing it on last gen now.
But you will, when it's in store in the next few months, for sure buy one.
100% he will.
Yeah. So I'm about 15 hours in the game. And honestly, I would want more time with it to probably talk to some of the stuff. Because last week I mentioned that I needed more time in the game, and that's because they start rolling out more and more systems as you get further into the story and things like that. And so there's some stuff I haven't gotten to yet, which I'd love to talk to, but I can't. So some of it is I haven't gotten to any big narrative threads and seeing how that stuff plays, so I can't really comment on how good I think the story side is or anything. I've mainly been focusing on clearing out one region and doing some of the cool side activities so that I learn as much as I can about the different stuff you can do in the game and what it's like to play. And
Did you get off the intro map, or you still doing?
Yeah, no, I'm
that
in
bit?
England and doing all the work there.
Okay, cool.
All the stuff there. And I
Spoilers.
haven't experienced any of the like Norse mythology stuff yet, which is what the main thing I would have loved to have played to give my impressions on. But I don't know how far along into the game that stuff hits, and I didn't want to just rush through the main quest to get there. I wanted to play it as I'd play a normal Assassin's Creed game. So
Okay, because apparently shirtless Chris Hemsworth is in the game.
bring it on! Come on, love me some shirtless Thor.
That guy's hot.
All right. So, if anyone doesn't know, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is an open-world action RPG. It's the 12th game in the main series, and it's the third in what people call the Layla Saga, or I guess the Origins trilogy. So, it's kind of the third in when the game became an RPG, basically became The Witcher with Assassin's Creed gameplay. So outside the Animus, the story continues directly from the Fate of Atlantis DLC for Odyssey. So just spoil for the next 20 seconds if someone hasn't played that yet, where you continue as Layla Hassan in possession of the Staff of Hermes, and she's basically it starts possessing your screwing for head and everything, and there's a huge cataclysmic event that's happening that's screwing with like magnetic fields and destroying satellites. And so essentially they're trying to, through a link that they found with this buried Viking, they're trying to figure out how to stop the end of the world, basically. So it's almost like the Desmond 2.0, where he had to try to stop the world through going into the Animus and stuff. So inside the Animus, which is what most people care about, it's obviously about Vikings. You're playing as Ivor, who's an orphaned Viking on a quest to build a new home in the distant land of Old England. So this is very Old England. This is like, Saxons. This is before it was unified, so there's different kingdoms and things like that. The game does start out in Norway, which is a pretty big map, so we talked about that last week. But the getting to England, like if you just mainline and you don't sort of run around exploring that map for ages, you get to England pretty quickly. And that's where the main crux of the game begins, where you've got a settlement. You start building up your settlement. The narrative starts to pick up because in the prologue of the game in Norway, it's a bit of a revenge story where you're avenging the person who turned and killed your parents and stuff, and that's just like that ties that up pretty quickly. And then it's like, okay, now this is the new land. Now we need to go around different parts of England, build alliances, take over settlements, raid, do Viking stuff. And My thoughts on this whole Viking thing and you essentially being the invader is a little mixed, because I know when they first showed this game, it's like, okay, well, Vikings are known for raiding, pillaging, raping people, like horrible stuff. And I'm like, well, how do they make it so that you feel like you're not playing as the villain doing this?
Mm.
And they don't. You're doing that stuff. Well, you're not doing the raping part, of course, but you
Well,
are.
you pat dogs. You can pat a dog, so
But
you're redeemed.
You're like, it's like, okay, we need to raid this monastery of just monks, just like doing their stuff, and you literally raid the monastery, and it does say you can't kill civilians, but you kill all the guards and steal all their stuff, and it's like you are
guards had families too.
You are the bad guy. Like, are we the baddies?
Sounds
you
like
are the
it.
baddie.
I love the are we the baddies sketch, and that's exactly what I was thinking of. Are we the baddies? We're crushing the heads of monks. And maybe we're the baddies.
And there's moments where, like,
oh look, there's a dog. Let's pet it.
There's moments when Ivor's shown as a really good person, and then it's like, and then it's just going around raiding and being a Viking. It's like, unlike previous protagonists in Assassin's Creed games, I don't feel like a good guy. You're doing horrible things in pursuit of a good goal. This is not. You're just being a Viking. Like, and I think that stuff will start to pad out as the wider narrative comes to be.
Maybe.
So I think that will probably change a bit. But to begin with, it's definitely, okay, we've got this settlement. Let's go raid places and then bring all the stuff back, and we can build a settlement up. Man, anyway.
I love it.
But in terms of gameplay, look, it follows what was built from Origins and Odyssey. So anyone who's played the last two games, it's going to feel very familiar in some ways, but it's actually quite unique in other ways. Like when it comes to controls, the free running, that stuff's generally the same. The combat is very different. I'll get to that as a separate thing soon. There's less of a ship focus than Odyssey. So Odyssey had a lot of, it kind of had a bit of a black flag thing where you're building up your ship and you do ship battles. This is pretty much using a longboat to go down rivers instead of your stuff. It's like you're within the English countryside. You're not out in the ocean in this game. There's less, I guess, icon bath, if that makes sense. So we know that a lot of Ubisoft, and especially Assassin's Creed games like Syndicate was really bad for this, where you will synchronize each area, and then unlocks and shows all the icons, like hundreds of icons across the map, and you're like, oh my god, this game doesn't do that. So there's definitely icons.
I thought there was an option where you can switch it on and off.
So I'll get to that stuff soon. Yeah. So even with that option set to the max, you still don't see that amount of icons. It's very different.
Cool. Okay.
But what they've done in this game, so there's 3 different settings for your gameplay experience. So one is combat difficulty. So you can set that at 3 different levels. Just for context, I left everything as normal recommended. Then there is the exploration. Now, Odyssey had this as well, where you could turn off all icon markers and you have to rely on like the quest log, then figure out from the quest log where to find it. It was really cool. This is a little different, but it still has options to, on how much it wants the game to hold your hand or not. But then it also has a third option, which is stealth difficulty. So when we talk about accessibility, this game has it in spades. It doesn't have meters like a lot of games, sports games specifically, where you're like, oh, I want them to pass this amount, and you drag the meter. Like, it's not that level of accessibility, but it's still really cool the way they've implemented it. But in general, just the exploration in this game feels very different in this one. It doesn't feel like there's stuff everywhere, and when there's stuff around you, it's actually really worthwhile exploring and finding that stuff, because you'll find cool world events, cool puzzles, and I'll get to some of that stuff soon, but it just feels very different. It's hard to explain, but as someone that's so used to the Assassin's Creed kind of model, this game they've taken a very different approach with it. Mentioned before, Mike, you mentioned, these games always have settlements where, you have to take out the top guard and stuff. This game definitely has some of that stuff, but it's not like marked on your map, clear this settlement or anything. It's like, okay, this settlement will have a treasure, and you'll know that there's a general treasure in that area.
Okay.
And you can, that treasure might be on a really tough guard, or just might be in a chest. And when you get that stuff and you get the treasure, you just get out of there. It's very different. It's more like you're collecting points of interest as opposed to ticking things off.
I think it's a much better approach. I mean, the horses for courses. I just think it just adds more to the exploration. You mentioned last week that there's unique weapons, unlike the previous installment.
So, I mean, there was unique weapons in Odyssey and Origins, but they were mixed in with a whole bunch of random equipment.
Okay.
So it was like, you know how with a game like Diablo, where you'll have your unique loot, but then you'll have a whole bunch of randomized loot and stuff.
Yes.
That's the way that Origins and Odyssey did it, and Odyssey went quite crazy with that. This game, it's all unique stuff. So, and if I haven't played around with a lot of equipment yet. I'm still kind of upgrading the stuff that you get in the first area. But they all have unique buffs, and just like past games, they've got set buffs. You know, if you've got 4 out of 5 of the Raven Clan set, you'll get, you know, different buff levels. I mean, that's common for RPGs and things. But it's fixed locations for this loot as well, which is really different. Now, some stuff was fixed in the past games, especially for the unique stuff, but then a lot of it was randomized, and none of that's randomized anymore. So they've kind of scaled that stuff back a bit,
cool.
which I think it's for the better. Odyssey's, I've said before, but, you know, for the sake of this segment, you know, Odyssey is by far my favorite Assassin's Creed game. So the fact that they scaled that down a bit, and I think it's a positive, I think is a really good sign for this game.
Okay, interesting.
Because that's interesting. Because so far from what you're saying and how you're playing this game, I kind of assumed it hasn't gripped you as much as other Assassin's Creed games have. Because it's like, what, 12 days post release, and you've played, what, 15 hours?
Yeah, but I actually didn't play Odyssey until like a year after it came out. So I don't always play these games right away.
You're not a real fan.
So I actually wouldn't take that as an indication.
Okay.
Take that as more an indication of me being as obsessive compulsive and wanting to complete Final Fantasy VIII again and spending all my time doing that.
Priorities.
I remember you did hit me up as soon as it launched on Xbox Game Pass. I'm like, well, you're going to complete that. That's going to have its own achievement list, which it does.
And I'm like, there goes my weekend plans. So the progression is really interesting in this game. So Origins and Odyssey were very similar, that you essentially had these skill trees that were kind of almost on the same page. You saw everything up front. So like, okay, I wanted to get to that end of the skill tree, so I'm going to spec in this certain way. And you get skill points by, you know, just by completing missions and killing enemies and doing stuff. This game, there's definitely a big skill tree, but it's all hidden. So you can't actually see what the end game is unless you know already, or you look it up online, which I'm not going to do. It starts specking you out in the 1 of 3 directions. So, you know, general combat, stealth, and then ranged. And based on where you start specking, it's very similar to the sphere grid from Final Fantasy X, where you unlock nodes and then, you know, have to connect them and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. They changed that up. You can respec at any time. I don't know if there's any cost to it. It doesn't seem like there's a cost to it. So that's cool, especially considering you can't see what those abilities are going to be. So the ability that you can just reverse it helps.
So that's fascinating. So it makes you wonder why they even really introduced a mechanic like that, when a lot of people are probably just going to look it up online, and B, you'll at a certain point you'll have enough points where you'll just reskill, go up a tree, see what's there, reskill, go up the other tree.
I guess I just wanted to mix up the formula a bit, and I think I like it.
Could be good.
What's different is, so in Odyssey and Origins, you would unlock abilities throughout that, and you still do, but then you also get abilities differently in this game. You find what's called books of knowledge. So a combat ability is something you can map. You hold like right trigger, and then you can map to one of the face buttons. So you actually find those books of knowledge and unlock the ability to like launch through the air at someone from a book of knowledge. And it seems that I think they're fixed locations as well, which is interesting. And you find another book of knowledge for the same ability, it upgrades it. So I've only got about 6 or 7 abilities across, like there's like ranged abilities on the left trigger and melee abilities on the right trigger. So that's very different as well. So they've taken a different approach there. I'm not sure how I feel about that just yet. And I guess the other part of progression is upgrading your colony, which I mentioned. So that's very similar to Black Flag, where you can upgrade your like pirate colony, but it's just more expanded. There's also something called a feast buff that a whole bunch of buildings add to. So I haven't seen that play out yet. I guess you can choose to hold a feast at in your longhouse, your Viking house or whatever, and the hall, and then it will give you like buffs that will last for the next couple of hours or something like that. That's probably a pretty cool system if that's the way it works. And I guess for general mechanics, they've brought back social blending, which is an Assassin's Creed thing going back to the original games that they kind of phased in and out of importance throughout the series. So the way that works is, you look like a Viking. You're running around in town looking like a Viking. So what's cool is there's this, you can toggle a cloak at any time that puts a cloak over all your equipment and everything. So you just look like a person in a cloak walking around, and then you can blend in. You can sit on benches. You can do old Assassin's Creed stuff. So they brought back in. And so you can be a bit more stealthy with that, which is pretty cool. But unlike the other games, it makes narrative sense in this. The last two games, I should say, because in those games you're running around looking like a Greek person in Greece. In this, you're in a foreign land, so it kind of makes sense narratively. One of the other mechanics, this is something I'm not a fan of, is they've retooled the health system a bit. So in the beginning of the game, it's really awkward because on normal difficulty, the enemies hit pretty hard. The combat still can be a little punishing at times. Now, combat is kind of where I'm getting to soon. But I think that the health system, you have to basically get rations back and heal yourself by picking like fruit off trees and things like that. I think that stuff will get less annoying as time goes on because you're unlocking new ration slots. So I've already got about 3 ration slots. So I think that will become less of an annoyance eventually, but I'm probably not a fan of the change there. And what has been a big change is actually the way that your eagle works, which is actually a raven in this game, but the last 2 games it was an eagle. So in those games, in recent classic Ubisoft fashion, there's where you've got like wildlands where you'd send out a drone and you can mark people. In Origins and Odyssey, you send out your eagle and then mark all the people in the base so that you can see them they highlight and the icons above them. It doesn't work that way in this. In this, you actually have to use the old like assassin view. I can't remember what they call in this, where you put it in the right trigger, it sends out like almost like a sonar pulse, yeah, and then marks all the people near you. So that's different. I don't know how I feel about it yet, but they have changed things up, and it's kind of...
It'd make it harder, wouldn't it?
You'd think, but...
Because the range is small as
well.
Yeah,
but there's... I mean, it marks people in a pretty good distance, but it's definitely not as easy. Like the using the eagle or the raven would have made that's definitely way easier.
Super easy. Yeah.
But I don't know how I feel about it because I kind of like the idea of scoping. Now, I actually still do use it to scope out, but it's more like, okay, I need to scope out this huge base on a mountain to find where the vantage points are, and I fly around and kind of you can mark and things like that. So that's pretty cool. Mentioned before the loot system, that's had a huge overhaul. But one thing I don't really like about it is, so Assassin's Creed Odyssey had a really cool upgrade system that meant you could really customize what buffs you had on your equipment. And with the unique equipment, a lot of that stuff was set in stone, so you couldn't change it. So the random equipment and crafting your own equipment and buffs meant that you could customize yourself. So I could stack buffs like plus 20% stealth damage across all these different pieces of loot and things. And so far, and I'm still early, I haven't really come across a way to really customize that stuff. Now, I will say there are runes you can put in. So there'll be rune slots that do that stuff, but it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel like you got as much control. I will say some of that stuff came later in like towards the end game with Odyssey, so this may also have some end game way to kind of really customize your equipment a lot more. Some other cool mechanics is that this game feels similar to Far Cry, at least New Dawn, because it's the only recent Far Cry I've played in a while. Mike, you'll remember how come up to a location, it's almost a bit of a mini puzzle and how to actually get into this location. So it's like, I need to shoot that, or I need to, destroy this thing. This game has a lot more of that than Assassin's Creed has probably ever had.
Oh, cool.
So you'll come up to just a normal village and a hut, and it's like, how do I get in there? And you've got to find the one breakable thing that's on the roof that you got to destroy to get in, and things like that. So even for just exploring, they've thrown a lot more cool little puzzles in there.
That's cool. It makes it more worthwhile and rewarding, I think.
Yeah, and just
coming across the place and exploring.
And just cool things like, you've always been able to sabotage alarm bells, but in this you actually have to shoot the rope and it's pretty cool because a guy will run up
Cool.
and start ringing the bell, and you can actually, like, in mid-combat, shoot it as he's ringing it, and it, like, drops down and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
A couple of quality of life things added. You can now autopilot the ships. So I said ships is not a huge thing, but when you are at least on a ship, you can tell it to follow the coastline, and then then you can also set it to follow the objective after that. And then you can set it to listen to stories, from people like reading poetry on the ship. You can set it to be a cinematic camera while it's autopiloting you there. So some cool stuff there. And some cool quick menu quality of life stuff like triggering raids, calling a longboat. So some really cool stuff there. Now, to get something I'm not as much a fan of, which is combat. So I kept mentioning combat there. And the reason I wanted to separate that was because combat's actually changed a lot. Origins and Odyssey were very similar to each other, where they were very much, okay, this is Dark Souls combat, put in Assassin's Creed. They were upfront early with Origins that, they've taken inspiration from games like Dark Souls where they put stamina, light and heavy attacks are on the bumper and the trigger, respectively. You've got heavy focus on parrying and waiting for enemies to take action and then punishing. So this game, they've changed it up a little bit. So you still got some of that, but instead, light attacks actually replenish your stamina. So, Mike, I don't know if you've experienced this yet.
I have, yeah.
What it ended up causing me to do early in the game was just to keep spamming light attack all the time. So it felt really messy. So it didn't feel like the recent, especially Odyssey, it felt like you were in full control. The start of this, when I was playing Valhalla, I felt that I was mashing all the time, which is not how Assassin's Creed generally feels, especially the recent ones. But eventually you fall into a rhythm, you're parrying a lot more, and as you get abilities, you stop doing that. But I don't know how I feel about actually using a light attack to replenish that stamina. I think that I don't think it adds to anything. It's weird. I'm like, I feel like they changed something that didn't need to change, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I think it will start to get better as I get more abilities, but it does feel like a step down from Odyssey. But that's probably the harshest thing I'll say about this game, is that I don't know if the changes they made to combat benefit the game more than anything else. So I guess some other things, the world of activities that you do around the map, they've actually added some really cool stuff to this game. So one of the biggest things is world events. So world events are just, they're side quests, but they're not like side quests where you are, go a quest to kill or collect these things. It's more something that happens in the same area that you find it. So if you find an event, you don't feel like you're just adding these side quests to a quest list like you would in an RPG or in the past games. You come up to an event, you actually want to do that event then and there. And some of them are really, really cool. Some of them are a little stupid. There's some ones that are going around online that I won't spoil, that are a little ridiculous. But I will. There's one I'll talk about. It's very early. It's in the first prologue. But as an example, I'm walking around in these snowy mountains. I find a guy on a cliff, and he's talking about wanting to get to the afterlife, but not wanting to leave his belongings behind. So he's got all these crates, and you talk to him, and he asks for your help. And so what the whole world event is, you pick up the crates, and you're chucking his belongings off a cliff. And he's like thanking you as you're chucking all this stuff down this huge cliff. It's off a huge mountain.
That's awesome.
And then he's like, thank you so much. And then at the end of it, he runs and jumps off the mountain.
What?
Because he's trying to get to the afterlife.
Wow.
And it's like, and your character's like,
That's dark.
What the hell? And there's some of them are really funny, but some really like there's one that I'm trying to say without spoiling too much, where you like, this guy's like, you can do anything to me. I won't matter, because I'm like, he's all super religious. He's a monk. He's like, burn down my house, destroy my belongings. So you go around, you're burning all this stuff. And he's like, what? And then he gets up and there's this note or something underneath him. And then you find out he's got this shack behind his house with all these murdered people in it. And you're like, and he's like, I brought them to enlightenment or something. And then he attacks you and you got to kill him. Like, there's cool little events like that. And they've had some stuff like that in Assassin's Creed before, but they've put such a focus on it that I think it's really, really cool. There's some really cool puzzles as you go around. There's like mushroom hallucination puzzles. There's standing stone puzzles, which is like lining up visuals, like kind of like Batman Riddler trophies. Mike, you might remember in New Dawn, there's a whole section where you're under hallucination, where you have to line up these. You have to stand in a certain position to find the shape that matches up in different environmental things similar to that. There's lots of legendary
That's pretty
enemies
cool.
that every time I've tried to come across them, they've killed me. So that's definitely not meant for early game stuff, but they're just wandering around like the previous games. There's cursed areas that you have to like complete an obstacle course and destroy cursed objects. There's lots of cool stuff like that. But probably one of the coolest additions is some of the town mini games that they've added. So they've added this dice game called Orlog, and I don't know if you've actually played any of these, Mike, because they introduced these pretty early. There's Orlog, there's flighting, and there's a drinking competition. Now, the drinking competition is just a little mini game that you do for money, which is not bad. But flighting is
What's flighting?
Flighting is literally insult sword fighting from Monkey Island.
Cool.
So it's basically, if anyone doesn't know, it's basically Viking rap battles where you're countering people's rhymes with rhymes to then diss them. So that's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
And Orlog is a really cool dice game that's very similar to, if anyone's ever heard of a game called Bang, or Bang the Dice Game, where it's like a dice game where you've got pictures on that would give different things like a picture of a gun. You know, in this case is, you know, it has different pictures of different things you're doing, and then you get certain points and you use these like god abilities. They've actually spent a lot of time on this Orlog game. And it's pretty neat to just go around each town and beat like the local person and get new abilities and things like that. And probably the last thing I'll focus on is the presentation. So Assassin's Creed games have generally always looked gorgeous. You know, we talked about sometimes, especially the earlier games, they're definitely not the most colourful games, but they've gotten away from that. So especially the last game set in really colourful, you know, ancient Greece with ruins and flowers in Sparta and stuff like that. This game, because it's in the English countryside, still looks gorgeous, but also inherently you're running around lots of foggy moors and swampy forests. But then you will come across, when the sun comes out, nice green farmland. So it looks really nice.
Cool.
Lots of...
So it's like playing Forza Horizon, but
yeah, pretty much.
a while
But there's
ago.
like obviously monasteries, castles, villages, rock formation. So it's really, really cool. I'm interested to get outside of the region I'm in, to go to, you know, Old London, to visit Stonehenge and all that stuff. It probably, the map kind of takes up what is probably like, looks like about a quarter or a third of England. So pretty big map. And just, yeah, graphically, it's great, but I'm playing it on the Xbox One X, so I can't judge what it's going to look like in PC on next gen. But
it looks really good on next gen.
But that brings me to the frame rate. So the frame rate of Assassin's Creed games on consoles has always been 30 frames, or like at best, right? And one thing, there's a couple of things that I didn't realize about what the next gen versions of these games do. So first of all, they run at 60 frames, which is actually unusual for Assassin's Creed console games, but thankfully they're now at that point. But I'm sitting here playing in 30 frames, of course. And it definitely feels really jarring at the beginning, because you're in a dark, snowy area in Norway that's, you're already learning what to do. You like, the map and compass system is quite different. You like, and the frame rate's kind of it's the most jarring at the beginning of the game. But eventually, I'm used to it now. But anyone that's looking to play this game and is looking to get next gen soon, I, more than any other Assassin's Creed game, play this on next gen, because it's just, I reckon this game is just going to look absolutely amazing, as Mike said.
Of course, and at 60 FPS,
and that's Xbox One X that you're playing it on, which is the best Xbox they released.
Yeah, but you've got to remember, no other Assassin's Creed game has run at 60 frames on any previous PlayStation or Xbox console. They've always been 30. So this is the first time they've actually made the jump on a console. On PC, it's a different game. So,
but are you saying that on the One X it was a bit like there was stutter?
I don't know if it's so much stutter. It's just, it just felt jarring in the beginning areas, especially because it's dark and the colors kind of look a bit muddy. In, you know, and you're already learning, like, it did hit me at the start, man. When I heard that it runs at 60 frames, I'm like, man, like, we talked about it before and we joked about it. Like, if there's any game that might get me to get a new console, when I realized
you're gonna do it,
there's two reasons, right, that I did.
This is exactly what I said.
No, but there's two things I didn't
come over and see it on my TV.
I 100% like. I remember that. There's two things I didn't know. First, that it ran at 60, because I wouldn't have assumed that for Assassin's Creed, because it's never run at 60 on console. And the other thing I didn't know was that the achievement list is shit. So there's no benefits for me as an achievement hunter to play
Oh
the
my
previous
God.
version.
No
Why are you even
benefit.
playing it now? I'd wait.
So that
Yeah, if you waited a year for Odyssey.
so there's part of me that thinks I might park this at some point. There's part of
I
me.
would
There's
park
part
it.
of me.
We're gonna
I
get a
would park
review
it
next
and
year.
enjoy it
We're gonna,
properly.
it's
Yeah.
gonna be like November.
What, this wasn't a review?
21.
Well, but you got to remember.
No, this
What
is
was
his
this?
Swinpressions.
No, but you've also
What did I do with the last 30 minutes of my life?
But you've also got to remember that they're releasing DLC and these are sizable packs over time. So by the time they release all the DLC, then I'll likely have a new console anyway. So there's part of me I'll keep playing it, but there might be a point where I'm like, look, I feel like
wait.
I've spent a good amount of time. Maybe I'll park it until like I'm still eyeing around Feb March as when I might pick one up. But yeah, we'll see how I go. But definitely, if you're not looking to get a next gen for a while, then this version is fine. But definitely, like that 60 frames is a huge thing. So
Well, it's 4K 60, I should say.
Yeah. You
Whereas
need
a
to
lot of the
come-
other.
now that
What were you saying, Mike?
No, I was just quickly saying, without a joke, now that lockdown's eased, you should come visit and check it out
On the PS5.
on the PS5, and then you'll instantly go to the shop to get an Xbox One.
Well,
Oh,
And
sorry,
then you'll be
Series
disappointed
X.
because there
Oh my
aren't
God.
any.
well, you got to remember. Like, I was so pissed off when they released the Ezio collection on Xbox One and Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered, and they didn't even make them 60 on those versions, even though the PC
Yeah,
version
which is
60.
weird because surely they
Yeah, anyway.
exactly could have.
So just to sum it all up, look, is this a good place to jump into the series? Yes. Like all the Assassin's Creed games are set up in a way where they're unique, and if you don't care about the out of the anima stuff, which a lot of people don't, then you can ignore it pretty easily. I do think I can't place this above Odyssey yet, though. I think that if you're going to play any Assassin's Creed game of the recent trilogy, Odyssey is the one I'll always recommend. A lot of people love Origins, but Odyssey is just absolutely brilliant to me. I cannot recommend that game enough. But this is still a good place to jump in. I think if you're looking for a game to play on next gen, it's a great one to play because there's not that many games that I think aren't old gen, last gen backwards compatible to getting upgraded. This feels like it would be a great next gen game. And honestly, if you like a game like The Witcher 3 or both the old or the new Tomb Raider games, this is the kind of game I reckon you'd love because it's kind of the mixture of those, the acrobatic puzzle, environmental puzzles with the action RPG and open world of Witcher 3. So I really like it. I don't want to sound negative on it. I just think some of the changes they made, especially around the combat, it so far hasn't felt like a positive. But I've loved playing it so far. But that's also coming from an Assassin's Creed fan. So it would have taken a lot for this game not to be my jam, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like thumbs up to you. More Assassin's Creed. If you're into that, get it.
More Assassin's
Otherwise,
Creed.
maybe wait for the next
But
gen.
I'll clarify, they've mixed things up, so it's not just like a repeat or anything. There's enough new here if to get back into it. So
No,
Nice.
Fair enough. All right, well, that wraps us up for this week's show. As always, if you want to reach out to us, we're pretty much Big Wig Pod on everything you can think of. Probably Twitter, and even if you email us at bigwigpod@gmail.com or go through the YouTube comments, I usually reply to all of them. And lots of debates about what EB Games is doing recently, which is quite interesting. If you do want to help the show out, make sure you give us a 5-star review on your podcast service of choice. That will help us grow. But for now, bye-bye.
see ya.
Adios.